Hello and welcome to episode 189 of the Imperial Truth podcast. My name's Greg. Joining me as usual is Mr. Howard. Hello, Howard.
Hello, Greg. You doing all right?
Yeah, not bad. Yourself?
Yeah, pretty good, thank you. Pretty good. Yeah. Surprised that we're coming into December already, but yeah,
Yeah.
I suppose I always am. I think we all are, aren't we? Even
Well,
though,
I had this sort of conversation with someone at work today. It was like, blimey. So in a month's time, it's a quarter of a century since celebrating the millennium, which is
oh,
just a bit
that's
freaky weird. And it turned out he was in Disney on the Millennium, which would be quite entertaining. I think he was very
that's quite
drunk by the time it
exciting.
turned New Year's Eve. I think, but there we go.
Amazing.
Anyway, I was in a house party in the middle of East Sussex. It was an interesting occasion. Anyway, so yeah, time flows ever
Turns out time
onwards.
flies. Yeah.
Indeed. Before we go there, though, we have Element Games just finished their Black Friday sale. Had some good deals on. Their usual 5 times store credit was cool. Sell everything you need, really. I'm sure they're going to do loads of Gunpla now because that seems to be the in thing in various Warhammer circles. But paints and airbrushes and artist opus. And did you see the new the new bits container in
No.
conjunction with Pete the Wargamer? Which is like if you've got a very specific project, it's just like the artist opus boxes. It's one of those, but within like an insert in there, and you can put your bits for that one model in, so they don't get lost on the table or mixed up with stuff, and you can put tools in there or something like that.
That feels like one of those things. I mean, it's ideal to release it in the run up to
Oh
Christmas because
yeah,
that feels like one of the things that you would scoff at and go, Psh, I don't need one of those. Surely that's it. Then end up having one as like it would be the ideal sort of offhand Christmas present kind of thing, and then end up being
yeah,
incredibly useful.
yeah, yeah. Not for me, but yeah, it's one of those things to keep the little bits together and what have you. Might not be a bad idea. It might be yeah, I'm sure they're not expecting it to fly off the shelf in its thousands, but it's cool. You know, they're looking at different things, which is good. So yeah, artist opus brushes, paints, models, you name it. You can get Lord of the Rings models. Cool. All the new fancy Eldar, but the Eldar itch is back. Luckily, I'm not good
Yeah.
enough as a painter to really for it to bite. I don't think so. I think I'll get away with that. But
Yeah, that was a bit bonkers. That whole thing,
yeah,
and all the follow up that's come out afterwards. But it was quite a moment. My expectations were quite low. And yeah, when it came out, I was like, oh my goodness, it's hit after hit with this. Oh my God. So
yeah,
yeah, that's going to be an interesting
quite
time in a few months, isn't it?
something.
Mm.
Indeed, yeah. Yeah, I can't wait to see what some of the people do with it. That is for sure. But yes, excellent stuff. And of course, we've got an affiliate with Battle Bling as well, and we've got Patreon and all kinds of other stuff. You can find it all in the show notes. We'll talk about it at the end as well. But it's all there. So, Howard, have you been doing any hobby?
Have. I have been doing the secret things that are going to be
Oh yeah.
coming out shortly.
Well, we can
Um,
talk about that. This is going to release. This is why this is releasing late.
Just to be able to get that
So,
in. I have been working on my main hobby while I've been finishing off some slightly more real world hobby of building a building outside the house that is going to house all the hobby stuff. I've taken that decision to say, right, probably best to move all the stuff out of the house now into. So I'm having to rapidly build
'cause it's
something that
easier to hide
yeah,
from your wife
we said we
or
weren't going to talk about.
or your new toys.
You mean the one that has direct access from the street via the side alley that
Uh,
may or may not be used as my way in for back when I
don't
come
tell
back from
people that now. They'll be hunting for your house. I don't even have to.
the one with all the booby traps. That's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm having to build that rapidly because we have baby number two is on the way.
Congratulations,
So
a hobby
thank you.
killer.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Decided it was all too straightforward the first time, so let's up that difficulty a little bit.
Yeah, truth.
So decided to we probably need to get that organised well in advance and get ourselves a bedroom back. So that has occupied a considerable amount of my time, all of my time and thinking, but that is now basically complete. So I'm now starting the great great crusade to take all the stuff outside. Alongside that, though, have got some painting done by getting the new Dark Mechanicum Stalkers, some paint on those. So there will be some pictures of those doing the rounds when those go up for pre-order on December the 7th, Saturday,
Yeah.
December the 7th. So you can pick those up, of course, with our friends at Element. And they have the Titanicus rules in there, which are pretty interesting as well
Yeah,
as
we'll
a
talk about
whole
that
new thing. We'll come
in
into
a
that in
little
more
bit.
detail later, yeah.
Yeah. But
But the
thanks
thing
to
is, the
GW
models are cool.
sending us those early. Again, it was like these need to get painted. Let's send them to Howard rather than me. But yeah,
Even with the distractions, I couldn't resist. I needed to get some of them up, but I did take the route this time. The sensible thing after thinking it through from the trying to do the Mechanicum in time is perhaps don't try and paint them all. Perhaps just try do a
sure.
one of each kind of thing. So
How
and that but they have been fun. Yeah.
well they look. So I'm looking at a picture of them now. Um, how detailed are they? I mean, it looks as if the ones that GW have put up are like fairly easy to paint in that they've done blocks of black and then just
Mm.
there's a lot of trim, but like the legs are silver trim and then some wires here and there.
I'll tell you one thing that struck me straight away because having seen them in the book, obviously, and there's photos, quite detailed photos on there, and there's a couple of articles they put out about them as well, which were more helpful than the images in the book for sure. Is you get a real sense of the differences between them. You've got these Overlord ones, which are the big ones, and they
Mm,
are substantially bigger than the other ones. Um, those they're all quite detailed. They've all got quite a lot going on, particularly when you get to these little tiny underslung weapons, and they've got that kind of
right,
classic
yeah,
Forge World las cutter look to them for some of them, and this new sort of crazy warp gun thing that's got a whole new kind of aesthetic to them that's unique to Dark Mechanicum. Those are very cool, and you get all the detail that these Legions kits have got. However, they go together very well. There's a lot of variation with the legs. You can put pretty much all the legs, well, not quite, but the legs pair up quite well, and you can do different combinations of them. You can have
right.
them sort of walking forward and doing different poses. But you really get a sense when you've got them beside each other of these big ones next to what you could describe as the medium ones, which are more night side. The big
Mm,
ones are of a similar mass, I would say, to, well, kind of, in terms of the sort of silhouette of them, to the Night Porphyrons.
yeah,
Whereas the small ones are more like the Questoris sort of size. And you get that real sense, which I didn't get. The differences
from the
between the
photos.
stalkers, I didn't get from the photos in the books, but having them in hand, they've got some real differences to it, particularly the three different types of small one, or medium
Sure.
one, rather. And then the infantry ones are, well, like Legions, Imperialist infantry.
They're
They're,
like
you know,
little ripper swarms, aren't they?
yeah,
What you
yeah.
mean the actual? Yeah, the little
Yeah,
dudes.
the little
Yeah, they're
gribblies, the
like little
little
ripper swarms.
yeah.
Yeah, but I say for all that detail, when you look at the pictures on GW's website, they seem like if you want to, you can paint them in a fairly simplistic manner
You
and have
can.
it be effective.
The actual models, yeah. I went for that very reason. I decided to go for a pale Zana 2 types paint scheme
Sure.
to try and do them down that to do them as sort of like a Malanax night scheme. And that lends itself quite well because you can go kind of heavy with the washes. Um,
Yep.
with them, and that picks out. It means you don't have to do the. They take a dry brush very well. They take a
Right.
wash very well. So I've just done them as a mixture of dark metallics on the gribbly bits, like all the tentacles and the on the underarm, and then anything that's armor like I've done in a sort of pale bone color with washes over the top, and
Sure.
that worked a treat with a dark base. I was quite pleased with those, and they come out looking a bit creepy. This sort of pale spider idea behind them. Yeah, they
So
were
the,
quite fun.
so the next thing is on this picture, they all line up really well on the base with the legs. How easy is it to properly pose the legs? As in, am I going to have a spot leaning forward, like weird angles? I can't build contemptors very well, like as I said, like or Voraks as they were and things like that. How are these guys in
I
terms of making sure all the legs are on, like particularly for the shooting ones? They've got the ones at the back, the real like scorpion-y type ones. They've got them with the four legs braced at the front and the two big legs at the back, and it looks good.
The big ones, yeah. I mean, the big ones have. There's a pair of legs that very clearly go at the back,
Yeah.
and they come in such a way. There's two pairs of legs that go at the back. One that are sort of arched over, and then the others are more straight, if you like. They pair up well. If you build them kind of from the box without bending those legs or articulating them, they will fit very comfortably on the base and on the model.
So there's
They're
not
quite
much movement, as in how much
no,
movement is there in the pose?
not if you really did lock it in, because it's such a small connection. There's
Right.
quite a lot, but if you treated it as it's intended, no, there's not very much movement at all.
Sure.
If you
Cool.
see what I mean.
That's
If
good because
if you wanted to, though, very easy to add quite a lot of movement. I
okay,
built the first
perfect.
one with its quite static legs. The second one, having built one, I thought I'm more confident now, and I did that sort of spider-like thing where you have the opposite legs are lifted.
Yeah.
And it makes them look proper creepy.
For you showing off, eh?
Well, that makes it sound a lot more grand than it actually is. Uh, the small ones are really quite fiddly to do, as is the way with the Legions things, and particularly these. But once you've got them on the bases, they are actually quite robust.
Yeah.
They've got quite a lot of connection points, particularly the ones with the sort of close combat ones, the assault ones. They've got six legs,
Butchers. Yeah.
the small ones, whereas the other two, the sort of controller ones, the ones with the sort of big Cyclops eye on them, and the shooty ones that are the smaller scale ones, they've both got 5 legs, whereas the combat ones have got 6, making them look quite different on the table, which
Okay.
is quite tell them apart. Yeah, I
Oh,
know.
I see. Oh no, I was looking at the ones at the back with 6 legs with the big guns on the back.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm with you
the
now.
really
Yeah.
big ones, the ones on the what are they, 60 mil bases rather than
Yeah.
the 50 mils.
Two back
They are
legs and 4 front
bases.
legs. Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Okay,
they're
cool.
a
Yeah, I
very
see
different
that now.
silhouette.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interestingly, the images. This is utter
You know what? Sorry, I just to interrupt. I felt something was wrong. I was looking at these little ones, and I'd not really done it before, and I was like, "Yeah, okay, the leg there." And it's not until you said they got 5 legs when my brain stopped looking for the 6th leg to work out how it fit. It's weird. It's like the Thing walking along from
The
Adam's
five
Family.
legs makes them look even creepier. The 6 legs has got the symmetry
Yeah, it does.
because the five doesn't have that
Yeah,
symmetry. And the way they've done it is you've
I
got
think
2 pairs of legs at the front. So you've got a front pair of legs, a mid pair of legs, but then
sure.
a single back leg. It does make them look really creepy, which is quite
Yeah,
cool. The big ones, particularly, still have that sort of spider-like thing with these little mandible forelimbs as well, and cool things. But the
sure.
5 leg ones are probably my favourite.
Yeah, I say it's playing weird tricks on my brain, but that's really really cool. Awesome. So that's been your hobby, has it?
It has really building those and the little gribbly ones. That has been what little time that I've had has been
Yeah,
all on
fair enough.
those, and yeah, that's going to change quite a bit. I've got quite a hankering to do more hobby now. I'm in a new hobby space. What about you? Have you got anything done?
I
Have you been
have.
able to
I
do
have
anything?
got. I am slowly still working on my Blood Bowl orcs. I think I probably talked about them
Nice.
last time.
Yeah.
Feels like they've been on the table for ages. I'm making very little progress. But I'm contrasting up some orc. I found a really good orc skin recipe involving like a almost I did talk about this because I kept getting the names wrong, but I've done the skin with a like a very light yellowy brown and then a green contrast. Um,
Yes, I
and
remember
then
you.
some. I went out and bought about 4 5 different yellows before deciding on Iron Jaws yellow as a really good orky yellow. And I've got a couple of Saturdays before I have to go to that event. Doesn't need to be painted for Blood Bowl, but I want to try and get them finished. So that'll be done, and then I need to focus on the next project. But I think again, there's going to be quite a few bills the last month, like about 4 different car bills for tax and insurance and everything else, and a need to book my flights for Adepticon still. So I've got a small pile of stuff to sell. Like I need at hand, so I can just, if I ever get like 10 minutes, I can just launch something on eBay. Um,
Mm.
but like I still think I've got things like old metal Blood Bowl teams and stuff, which hopefully will raise a little bit. but I haven't done a lot of hobby. Every day it's like, oh, try and do something and sit down and make slow progress for 25 minutes. Feels like you're getting nowhere.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
the little
It is
one
something.
is in a real kind of, I'm going to eat all your time. Uh, yeah, the thing about kids is you don't realise sometimes I've been really bad at fair play to single parents because I've been really bad at okay, it's me and James at home and I don't manage to get like the dishwasher done or anything done while he's there. Um, but I need to get better at that. That's on me. Because then that eats into my free time later on,
Yeah,
But
yeah,
we'll get there. We'll get there.
yeah. That
So,
balancing act is something I think that is definitely one that comes with time from all the reading and
well,
conversations I'm having.
yeah, and because I haven't had to manage it that much because there are two of us and one kid. I suppose it is a lesson that hasn't been learned as quick as other people. But yeah, we're getting there. So they're
That's cool, though. It's something though. It's something you're getting done, which is cool.
yeah. I feel a little bit better about painting, as in progress. And I really need to start planning out what I'm doing after that kind of thing to make sure that I'm not dithering on stuff
Mm,
like what is gonna what's gonna get me the most done kind of thing.
yeah.
Um, and what I need to do for events or what have you. So yeah, you know, plodding along, as they say.
Coming along,
I have. I mean,
basically. Yeah.
to be fair, I've got a list of like proper jobs to do. Like I need to go through all my pension stuff at some point and all that keep getting put off. And then I've got another project that hopefully in the new year we'll be talking about.
Oh,
That's been
yes,
eating
that's
up a
really
bit of
picking up
time
some
as well.
time. Yeah.
Yes, hopefully 2025 is going to have some really cool stuff, but we shall see. And Baldur's Gate 3 is still out, and you know, uh, 4 playthroughs is not enough. So when they
Wow.
release new content in 2025 and there's 12 new playable sub classes, that'll be more time spent on that, I'm sure.
Yeah, I was one of those who got influenced by everyone talking about Space Marine 2 and promptly played, I think, the training mission. That's about as far as I got.
Oh, I'm
Any of them?
quite lucky in that you have to on the PlayStation you have to pay. Well, I don't pay to play online against people who are going to tell me my mum sucks or whatever. So I'm I'm just I'm of that generation. I'm like no. So I played the story and then just moved it on. It was
Well,
really good.
that's all I would be doing. I didn't even get that far. I haven't
It's
managed to get
really
that much.
pretty.
Yeah.
The advantage of owning a disc PlayStation 5, I could have probably have sold it for what I bought it for, but rather than paying £10 more and getting a digital only copy. It makes you mad. But yeah, Space Marine is a super pretty game. Although, and then they tempt me by releasing more Dawn of War, not Dawn of War, Total War Warhammer content, and it's like, oh, come on, man. You know, it's
Yeah.
it's tough. It's tough. But there we
I
go.
I'm speaking of that. I was absolutely kicking myself over that. I got asked to go to. I haven't told you this. I got asked to go to the headquarters of Sega to go
Did
and
you?
have. Yeah, I got because our local gaming store reached out. I was a research company. Said, anyone play Total War Warhammer here? Anyone interested in Warhammer here? Maybe want to apply to come and we're going to do a focus group. I was like, well, funnily enough, yeah, I'd be on board with that, and signed up to it. And they came back to me eventually and said, yeah, cool, come on in. To cut a long story short, it was 6:30 on a weekday. I was like, no problem at all. Thanks to my delightful friends at
Mm.
Southwest Trains, that wasn't possible. And after a sprint from Kew Station to Sega headquarters over here in West London, I was 3 minutes late, and that was enough for the
Ah,
doors. That was enough for the doors to be locked and said, "Sorry."
ah.
The deadline was pretty clear, and the time here, it was the I was as angry walking back from that as I've been in recent times. I was
Don't know.
so annoyed,
They don't know
so
who you
annoyed.
are. It's not good.
I was furious about that. Yeah, that was upsetting.
No. It's all right, Howard. I was busy that day.
Yeah, yeah, that was a
I can
funny
take
one.
a day off work. It's fine.
you'd
Oh,
have
next
loved to
time.
travel 2 hours for that, I'm sure.
Well, I would have been there on time, mate.
Yeah, true. You'd have taken the day. Yeah,
Exactly. No worries.
I was so angry. I was just to be
Oh, I
let
can
down
imagine.
by I had 3 trains I could have got. One was cancelled. One turned out to take like an hour and a half longer than all the others, which was insane. And then the last one was delayed in the station because they were repairing the driver's seat, and the engineer took just long enough to make me 3 minutes late. So
I
yeah,
heard. I heard he did it on purpose.
yeah, possibly. You know what they're like. They're like, this guy. We can
Indeed.
mess him up.
No worries. I tell you what. Let's take a break after that anecdote, and come back to talk about what's been going on. Well, there's not been a huge amount happening in the last month, but I have quite a few tabs open, which I don't quite know how I've done that on my thing. But there we go. That's why, because I've doubled some up. Classy. Um, so yeah, November's been relatively quiet. What did we have? We've had a Heresy Thursday on melee weapons.
Hmm.
It's quite a nice little article, actually. It's quite cool little ideas in that.
This
It's
is the
got a
one where this is the one with the community team getting a hold of it.
community. It gave us the rowboat memes for the power lance, but it's good to see the weapons in situ, as it were. I
Mhm.
think. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just looking at pretty pictures now. But that's cool. I mean, we'll get it eventually, right? What else was there? Well, the other Thursday article we're getting a return because there's going to be one after we record this, but before it comes out, typically.
Yes.
What do you think about our caster of runes?
I really quite liked that model. It's an well, it didn't go. It didn't go quite. Well, I don't know. Does it? I was thinking. I was almost imagined them going a bit more feral than this. I think it's an interesting mix of armor styles, meaning that
Yeah.
it's a Mark V, as that you've got that
Um,
sort of
is it
together
or is
kind
it
of.
runic armor?
Is it its own thing? Yeah, fair enough. It's kind of it's got an interesting set of armor pieces on it with interesting details from different types and influences.
Yeah.
I think it was a nice mix of. It's definitely gone in that direction of the more recent Space Wolf designs, and I
Mm.
think it's cool for that. It would look great alongside the Space Wolf Lord, for example. Angular helmet, yeah, I'm here for it. I think it looks kind of.
I like the helmet.
Yeah, I do, and I think the whole pose looking slightly more considered. I thought was quite cool because they could have gone down a route of sort of really projecting power or something, and I thought this one sort of standing off, looking more sage. I thought was quite cool. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think basically the same, really.
Hmm.
Uh, just having a little look. I think what will annoy some people is that raised wolf emblem on the right shoulder pauldron.
Hmm.
But you could probably scrape it off. I mean, it is resin, so if you do that carefully. Uh, yeah, I like it. I like the staff having that a touch of the wolf about it without going OTT.
Hmm.
And then that bare head is fantastic.
Hmm.
It's super cool. I was trying to remember the painter did put something on Instagram. They didn't say it was them, but they put the picture up. Can't remember the name
Psychic hood.
now.
The psychic hood is cool.
Yeah. Uh,
Some totems on it. Doesn't go too far. It's got that sort of the spiked studs, which you typically tend to see more on the traitor legions, but is in no way exclusive, obviously, to that.
no,
But it's
absolutely.
one you tend
Feeds
to see
into
associated.
the more what should I call it, nature of the space wolves, I think.
More slightly more savage, yeah.
Yeah.
Same as that you do get. I mean, there was always the classic, as this guy's got the diamond rather than you tended to see in that second edition design of Space Marines, gems that were tended to be round. Space Wolves were always the angular diamond shape, and
Yeah.
they've picked up on here, and then that's carried through on a lot of the detailing on it, which I think is kind of cool.
Was it Paul Norton? Paul Norton has posted, yeah, Space Wolves Caster of Runes console, which I'm assuming means he did it. Oh yeah, I mean people are saying stunning work, Paul, and he's saying thanks, mate. So yeah, he's on Instagram if you want to follow Adjutant Paul Pal, Ajunta Paul Pal PAL, so PAUL. He's the guy I copied. He did the Iron Ravens, whatever they're called. Iron Ravens, yes, where I borrowed their style, the silver marines with the lots of blue and the red accent, which I swapped around for my Space Marine chapter. He does some cool stuff.
Mm.
So yeah, but that head looks awesome. I can see that being in demand a lot, but it's going to be quite hard because I think most Space Wolf players are going to use it if they get it. So
Yeah.
all fun. We did get. I'm talking about heads. I will mention the. We're getting the first look of the Slanesh for 40k.
Oh
And we've got
yes.
those 3 renders, which
Yes. Yes. Yes.
they can fit. Like, if you're going like the middle head is just the plumed like Mark 6 variant, which is super cool. But the other two, if you're going to go full full been mucking around too much
Mm.
with what you shouldn't, then hopefully there's going to be some cool bits in that set as well when it eventually comes out sometime in 2025, which is super good. And
I'm
what
just
else did
thinking
we?
about because they did the shoulder pads as well, didn't they?
Yes.
Which were sort of obviously highly adorned versions or highly warped versions of
Mm,
rimmed shoulder pads like the Mark III armor. Very cool. Like you said, I think there's going to be a lot of crossover kits there, as you said, particularly that one on the left of the 3 that they showed, and they could be variants, and they go in that more warped late heresy. In the same way that I've seen plenty of people using the
World
Corn
Eaters.
Berserker, the new Corn
Yeah.
Berserker kits. Yeah, I mean, there's loads of the World Eaters, particularly the Corn Berserker kit works a treat as Sons of Horus Reavers, as World Eaters for obvious reasons. It's plenty of mix and match with the Heresy kits. It works a treat.
But sure.
So
We
hopefully,
had. Sorry, Karen.
I know. So I was just saying, hopefully these will go the same way, and they
Yeah.
have lots of cross compatibility.
We had the update for Legions Imperialis, didn't we? The download about the Cybernetica
Yeah,
packs, whatever they're called. Not something I looked into a huge amount, but you said they look quite cool.
yeah. I did do some reading about it. I haven't delved into them too deeply myself, but does add some quite a bit of flavour. It's quite a lot to it. Basically, it was one. It was giving you 7 different formations and one for each of the legions Astartes, Solar Auxilia, Mechanicum Tagmata, Dark Mechanicum, and Collegia Titanica, and 2 for Night Households. So each of those factions effectively gets one of these where you can integrate the Cybernetica units more tightly with your own force instead of mixing them in, giving you yet more options for the way you construct your forces, which is kind of the one of the big deals with Legions Imperialis. How do you actually formulate your army? How do you bring it to the table? Because there's lots of different ways you can do it.
Yeah, I
When you
remember
organise,
now looking through it a little bit. Yeah, because you've got Iron Cohort,
yeah,
Ironbound, Ruin Host. What is interesting is then the Night Household and the particularly the Collegiate Titanica support cohorts, um, allowing you again to bring your Titans in more than just adding them on
mm,
to a force, making them feel much more part of a force, which I think is really cool.
yeah,
And is what should be happening. And at some point, hopefully, we get these in a book down the line. I know people don't like having to buy free info, but if you want this free forever, then print it off, make sure it doesn't disappear. But I quite like having the stuff in the book, as I've said before, and hopefully that'll feed into, say, a book down the line somewhere.
Just cool as well to see color schemes and similar in the article itself done to the same level as you would expect in the bigger books.
Yeah.
Just new inspiration of saying, hey, you don't have to paint these all red. You could
Yeah,
paint
sure.
them to match your legion. I mean, just giving you ideas that you may not have thought of, which I thought was cool.
Absolutely. Okie dokie. We had the World Championship preview, as we mentioned. To be honest, before we get into Heresy on this front, there was someone on one of the Discords who works for GW who was like, yeah, the last preview we had was ruined by the leaks. But even then, I felt it was lacking compared to what I would want from a big preview. I think this preview was one of the best previews GW have ever done in terms of quality across the whole preview.
Agree with that. Yeah.
I don't think there was really a missed step. Now, if your game wasn't included, fair enough, I get it. But we had the Age of Sigmar stuff was fantastic. The Orcs and Goblins. Have I got everything? Yeah, yeah. I thought that was fantastic. What else did we have? The Old World Empire stuff. Like, I sort of didn't expect the War Wagon to be quite dealt with the way they have, but makes sense, and I probably should have thought of it being done that way. Made to order is interesting and frustrating people, but how many of these things are they actually going to sell, and do you want to have them sat on a shelf? No, not really, because it's a pain. Some super cool characters, and then what else did we have? The Krieg. Oh man, the Krieg.
Yeah.
If I had a traitor militia force, I'd be buying some of these guys. Those horses make perfect traitor, cavalry. I just think they're phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal, and the character on Steed is just like, again, one of those pieces that just stands out
I
so much.
I mean, it was clear that something Krieg was coming from the quantity
Yeah,
and consistency of the rumors. I wouldn't have expected it to be anything like the volume that
no,
they did. I agree completely with what you say about this preview, though. I mean, I've heard a lot of people say the same thing, and people reflecting on it afterwards. But it's been pretty universal in its praise, where it was sort of hit after hit, and it was the quantity of it as well, particularly for 40k. I wouldn't have expected Krieg and Eldar
well,
to be in the same preview.
they've got a busy time with 40k, haven't they? They've got to get some armies out, I think. Yeah, didn't that having then the Eldar on top of that, and having a few new Phoenix Lord for the Warp Spiders, which is phenomenal.
Absolutely
Just
massive
such
as
a
a
beautiful
lore
model.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and then and Baroth and the others are they're kind of only less impressive a little bit because they're variations on what we've seen. Stunning upgrades. Pour one out for Karandros, but
Yeah.
I
He'll be
mean,
there. He'll come.
yeah, in time. But for what Eldar need, is there an argument that they could go and revisit some of the vehicles? Yes, but also those vehicles are still pretty damn good. The Warp Spiders needed new models, absolutely. You could argue that some of the other aspects could do with some new models, but again, in time, the Dire Avengers are quite. No, not the Dire Avengers. Yeah, Dire Avengers are.
Yeah, Dire
They're not
Avengers is the oldest.
the oldest,
Well,
isn't it? Yeah,
clearly what they needed to do, and I think Jez Goodwin has said it. I mean, they in their various iterations and production cycles, they only had so much capacity
yeah,
in
absolutely.
all forms to be able to do so much plastic.
Yeah,
And he said he was given a choice on one occasion: do you want to do aspect warriors or do you want to do jet bikes and Wraithguard? And he chose
yeah,
jet bikes and Wraithguard. Knowing that we're going to come to this in the fullness of time. They did Dire Avengers, as you say. Those Dire Avengers are getting old, but they're still plastic. This is all part of the
yeah,
march
exactly.
towards
They're not
get rid
far off.
of resin. Yeah,
Yeah,
get rid of as much resin, what was previously metal, then resin, get rid of it as quickly as you can, move everything to plastic. So you're not going to redo Dire Avengers while you've still got other things that are in resin. And the Eldar range is pretty massive now. I mean,
It is, yes.
it's also a look that's increasingly almost not well. Is it increasingly? It's very games. It's very unique to Games Workshop. There are variants on various power armored super soldiers in various things, but Eldar quite a distinctive, very distinctive Games Workshop look, and
the space elves,
it's
aren't
they are, but there's
they? But
not.
no, they're not just space elves. They're more
No,
than just space elves. So yeah, no,
it's a
they're
very
very cool.
They
Very
got also
cool.
with these. I mean, there's been others where they were some of the releases or some of the versions of them were not controversial, but there were people had opinions on them. These seem to get that right hit
Well,
of nostalgia mixed with update.
yeah, I mean, not so much. I think they were strong releases just generally anyway, but I have no problem if someone hates the new Eldar. Like, cool, GW won't either. They're like, cool, go and buy one of the other 27 armies we have for 40k.
Yeah, yeah.
But I mean, but I think they're strong thematic, like links through all the stuff they released, whether it's the goblins, the gits for Age of Sigmar, bringing in their like the Age of Sigmar versions of the old goblin stuff, like Grom the Paunch revisited effectively, is really good and allows them old world to stay old school. Is super cool. But Krieg, particularly for the Heresy, like the heavy weapons, little squads, the big like thud cannon, whatever it's called, not thud cannon, whatever it is.
Was a thud gun, but yeah, not anymore.
Yeah,
Even that mortar thing, that
heavy
mortar
mortar,
ball.
heavy quad launcher. Yeah, whichever one you're going to build, it's a big kit, but that's super cool. And all of a sudden, yeah, you can have your Heresy troops filled out in plastic with these guys. Super awesome. It'll be pretty big, but who cares? And there's
I would have bet money that they were going to do sort of an upgrade kit that would allow you to tweak the Krieg kit they'd already got, possibly even tweak the Cadian kit. To
I
have
would have
all of the unique
I don't know.
kits is serious
The,
business.
the the problem with that is the rebreathers go into the armor.
Yeah.
So I think I just didn't expect. I think they'll expand on this in X amount of years' time, but I just didn't expect quite as much. I think it's
No,
pretty cool.
certainly not all in one
Super
go.
cool.
And this combined with the Heresy tanks, I mean, yeah, superb.
Exactly. Yeah, and yeah, the Heresy vehicles. We were promised tanks, some books as well. But we were promised tanks. What did we get? The Arvus type of tank, flying tank, with. I mean, it's just in plastic makes it affordable. Like it might not be cheap, but
I'm just
you can have
really
more than one.
surprised. I'm surprised they did this. I mean,
Mm,
on the one hand, you could say, well, obviously they were going to do this because they had the Legions plastic ones. On the other hand, it was not that long ago that they remastered the resin kit and sort of re-released it.
yeah, I wonder. Again, we know that decisions get made in the company that maybe not all the company knows about, or that they switch what their plans are quite quickly. Um, and well, yeah, so they knew this. Yeah, I mean, maybe they didn't. Maybe they had separate people working on this, and maybe they'd already started remastering the other one and thought, well, we might as well do it and get what we can from a release. Yeah, I don't know,
Yeah,
but
I'm just surprised.
it's
I
good
was
to
just
see.
surprised. I thought we'd be waiting longer for this particular kit, but like you say, these release schedules can move around a lot
Sure.
from what they've got. So fair enough. But yeah, delighted to see it because you're far more likely to see more of them
Yeah.
now.
Oh,
Hell
in
of a lot
plastic.
easier to
Yeah,
build something like this in plastic than it would be in resin.
for sure. Absolutely. And then the Malcador Infernus and
Mm-hmm.
the Malcador in a couple of variations.
Valdor.
Sorry, Valdor. Sorry, wrong
Well,
one.
yeah, Malcador.
Malcador
Val.
and the Valdor.
Yeah.
Yeah, which are so different. But
Yeah.
again, like it's sort of not exciting because we know it's coming and we know these things are happening over the course of a period of time, but it allows people to go and buy them again. How much was a Valdor in resin
Not
money?
sure, but it was a lot because it
A
was a
lot.
chunk of resin, and
Yeah.
it was a project to put together.
Yeah, the big flat, the big panels, the
Yeah,
side panels, like rarely straight. Um, and again, you're probably going to buy what for the price of one, you could probably get 2 to 3 of these.
yeah,
You would
yeah.
expect, which just makes it so much more viable as an option now. Are the rules good enough? Whatever, frankly.
Yeah. Are the rules viable? Well, is it a giant Titan-sized flamer on a tank with a little
Exactly.
wheelbarrow at the back?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and rules
Okay.
can change at various
Yeah.
points, but you can have all the different options on there much easier than
Yeah.
them dealing with the resin. All that kind of stuff really plays into that. I think it's super cool. And the Derridero weapon sets again, like it's not none of that. I mean, in terms of new stuff, obviously Heresy was the lesser child of the lot, but it's still stuff we need. So fine.
I was listening to someone. I think it was Henry on Cult of Paint doing their reflection on this, and he said you often get in these reviews where you get one of the parts of it is yeah, okay. And you could argue Heresy sort of filled that, and often you get most of it does that, and you get one or two real zingers, and this time it was most of it was like that. I would argue even this, I mean, particularly with the addition of the Arvus, this still made you sort of go, oh, cool. Even though we'd seen, I mean, this Heresy's got that strange place where it's things we've seen before rather than new stuff, but you're seeing it released in plastic, but they are adding quite a bit. I mean, the Arvus particularly adds quite a lot to see the pilot, the door gunner, the
Mm,
little extra details on it. Even the tanks, like you say, there's extra bits to them. So it's almost like you're seeing them in HD somehow, or perhaps a bit extreme. But you're seeing stuff
mm,
in it, and it is genuinely useful. Yes, you could argue these are the ones that were the more expected of the things because they weren't inherently new, but I still think they're kind of exciting in their own right. You still think you're like, actually, yeah, this is going to be really useful. Particularly the case of the Arvus, I think. But so I'm glad they chucked that in there.
yeah, and
There was a
also
time
like
put
it's
one
not
of these.
like yeah, if they didn't show you this, they wouldn't show you anything. Like,
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
they're obviously not ready for the next thing to be shown off, and they got a lot
no,
going on with 40k and what have you. So I don't mind.
no, I agree completely, and I
I'm
think and
never
it's
gonna
still
go.
something. I still think it's a meaningful stuff to show.
Yeah, I'm never gonna go into a heresy preview with my expectations ramped super high
No.
unless there are big signs
Mm,
like Adepticon 2 years ago. That was it's a different story kind of thing.
mm, mm.
When we knew that there's heresy on there, like we know we're getting something heresy. But yeah, I think it works out, and might have to get myself a Derrideo weapon set too at some point. It's all
Yeah.
good fun.
Yeah,
And
the Arvis is a dangerous one because you think, well, particularly now it's in plastic, you're like, but when it was resin, you're like, well, if I was ever going to go for it and wanted it as a cool thing, as an objective, but also using the army, yeah, one, that's what you're going to do. But a plastic one, you're like, oh,
yeah,
is it two? Is it three? A little squadron of them? Oh God,
I've seen
you're
some
gonna
40k people like, oh, we want rules, but I guarantee you now there are some people with some 40k guard armies who are going to replace their chimeras with Arvises just for the look,
yeah.
and buy some for terrain and all that kind of stuff.
Oh,
Yeah,
the event we two went to, there was the guy there with his
yeah,
airborne group of these, all of the ones in resin. It looked incredible. Admittedly,
absolutely.
on perspex flight stands that as thick as my wrist, but it was
Well, I mean, yeah, that's the other advantage. Yeah, for flyers, hopefully we can get some more flyers in plastic because it's
yeah,
bad enough having heavy resin models on the table when you then got to lift them, best part of a foot on a on a bit of plastic or a steel or a rod. Then it's yeah,
whole other thing, isn't it? Yeah, but yeah,
tense.
cool, very very cool preview. Yeah,
Yes,
standout one for sure.
And then the last thing I did want to talk about was Warhammer Heroes.
Oh yeah.
So it's back. They had the photos because obviously COVID happened, but they actually combined the winners of 2020 and 2024, and they did twin events, one at the Warhammer Championships and one in Nottingham, which is quite cool. So quite interesting because 2020 had a few more like recognizable names in it from people in the hobby. 2024 was very much more or fewer of those, more people that was like, oh, cool, that person does this, and I don't really know much about that, but that's awesome that they won that kind of thing. So it's good to see them recognised, and also to find out they will be doing it again soon. So keep an eye out for that. If you know someone who has like a really long-running book blog or something that you really feel deserves to be mentioned, then it's an opportunity. Or I say that person who's kept your gaming club going for 8 years when it was really tough, or the person who lends all their armies out to whatever it may be.
The person who makes their club what it is, the person who's always holding their gaming group together. Yeah, there's lots of examples of what
so
that
many
can mean.
different examples. Absolutely. Yeah, and if you look at, you look at last year's, the whole, from someone who helped run Nova and a kids hammer event and everything else, down to literally I'm going to get her name, Stacey McClellan, who co-founded a club for underprivileged children and a club for adults in a local hall, and it's entirely free through the donation of funds and miniatures from linked adults clubs. Like awesome. Like she can't it'll be hard to say she doesn't deserve to be a Warhammer hero. That kind of thing. Oh, there's a podcast host here. Oh, Forest Heresy one. Ah, okay. Joking. But as Andre Ramos, that's a foreign language podcast by the sounds of it. So me with my English ignorance will not understand any of it. Awesome. So the other thing we have, now the NDAs have lifted, we can actually talk about those new Titanicus rules, can't we?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
So we have 3 units. What we got? Scintillax Stalker Banner, a Tenebrax Stalker Banner, an Arax Stalker Banner, and actually we've got the Cerberus Stalker Banner as well.
Yes, the Cerberus is the big one.
This is the big one.
The big shooty one.
Grandis, scale 4.
Yeah, that's the biggie. And then the others are the smaller ones.
Sure. So they have this thing. Do they all have the shields?
No.
Construct shields, construct shields, construct shields. Yes, they do.
Well, they may say it, but I don't believe they actually have it.
They're different levels. Oh no, the Stalkers, the Tenebrax do not have construct shields.
Yeah.
Making it clear that they don't. And they are different values. So, construct shields. Cerberus Stalker banners have an ion shield level of 3+. Cool, ion shields. We know how they work. Brilliant, 3+. Which is unchanged by weapon strength or banner size. That's pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
They have a construct shield level of 1 times the starting number of stalkers in the banner. So more stalkers, more shields. Each time a save roll is failed, decrease the construct shield level by 1. You still make armor rolls for these hits. When a construct shield level is 0 or less, the banner cannot make ion shield saves for the remainder of the battle. So, if you roll hot, then construct shields are amazing. If you roll less hot, they're much less amazing.
Yeah, they're going to disappear, yeah.
But, I mean, 3 up is pretty awesome. And they're going to get, and if you can have, so what is it, the 80 points?
3 up against, regardless of what being fired at them. I mean,
exactly, yeah.
High strength stuff, with melter cannons at short range. I mean, it's serious stuff.
You start with 2 and you can have up to 4 additional. So you can have 6 of these guys, all with 3 up saves, basically. So that gives you 6 shield levels, which is amazing. I mean, you are still taking a hit every time you fail when that happens. And they're pretty tough. 9 to 12 is a direct hit, 13 to 15 devastating, 16 plus critical. They've only got 3 structure points, so they're quite vulnerable once the shield's down.
I'm really surprised at that. I thought the bigger ones would go up to 4. I'm slightly surprised that they kept those at 3.
Yeah, I mean, the shield.
I'm basing
Because
this on Legion's rules, but yeah.
Yeah, because when you look at the smaller banners, their ion shield level is a 4+. So
Yeah.
they put the extra survivability. I mean, the little ones only got the tiny ones only got 2 structure points. But
Well, the
yeah.
tiny one is the same size. The tiny one is the command one.
Oh, is that what it is?
They're all the same size. They haven't
Of
got the
course it is.
infantry
Yes.
equivalent. Yeah, they haven't got the infantry equivalent one. They've got
Apologies.
the
Yeah.
Arax is the Cyclops one. The Tenebrax is the shooty one, the shooty little one.
Yeah.
Scintillax is the close combaty one, and then the big ones are the Cerberoses.
So it is interesting because the stalkers do have the shields, the Tenebrax don't, and say
Well, that's what's interesting
the
because
Erax
in
do.
Legions, one of the roles of the Erax, which is like the command one, it's got a dual role. One, it has a benefit in its command capabilities. It's got this ability to sort of do this network anima thing, which is quite relevant with orders and what they can do in Legions. But the other thing it does is it brings construct shields. And because you can mix formations together, you can create a formation of different detachments. You can have your mixed formation of these things where the construct shields are sort of working together. That's not possible, I don't think, in Titanicus. So you can't have your Erax provide its construct shields to the Tenebrax, for example, which is one of
No.
the roles that they specifically have in Legions. So that doesn't
Right.
the game doesn't allow that to happen in this. What it does do is it does do the network anima thing, where it can use its sort of command ability.
Which is important because
Yeah, it's useful.
the Erax is a 7+, the Tenebrax is a 6+, and the Scintillax is a 4+. The Cerberus is a 7+. So yeah, the Scintillax are important to be able to
Yeah.
share that 4+ command. And it'll be interesting to see when you're building your force, kind of the combination of how many of what you take, because 7+ is not super high. And it doesn't say that. So it doesn't say that anyone's like in knights. You have the
Princeps Senioris type thing.
Prince of
Yeah.
Senioris. There's no Senioris rule here.
No.
So you are what the command value is. So if your Cerberus are by themselves, you've got a command value of 7+. You're not going to be getting many orders off.
The unit. I mean, I haven't done a direct comparison with the cost of knights, but the cost of extra units within a banner
Cheap.
is very cheap, particularly in the case of the Scintillax. The Scintillax are what is it, 60 points?
Yeah.
60 points. How many of those do you get in the 60 points? Is that 2?
2
Scintillax
and
bonus 2,
25
so you get
points
2
each.
and 25 points each after that. I mean, and then the others 80 points. Yeah, the others are sort of more direct cost thing, but you get quite the saving on that, and the big ones are similar. I mean, those are quite cheap and they're quick. These things.
Well, yeah, and they come. I mean, you can just run them at the base points level with just a las cutter. To get them into combat, strength 5 fusion, only 1 die, but it's potentially scary. They're not slowed by difficult or dangerous terrain. Any of them, they're all agile. Their movement 8, 7 on the Tenebrax, 9 on the Arax, and the big guys are 8 as well, and 3s or 4s. So all of them bar the Arax, which are the metal gun ones. They're ballistic skill 3, weapon skill 4. The Arax swap that round with their melter guns and las cutters. So they're 50 points for the Arax for 2, and 25 points extra each, plus 5 for a melter gun. It's not a lot of points for quite a you don't want these guys getting up to you.
No, I think
Yeah,
I
a
mixed
las
that up
cutter
earlier.
and a melter gun.
I did mix that up earlier. The Airax is
Yeah,
the
the
closest
Arax
combat
are
one. The
close combat.
Scintillax is the command one. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why it's got such a low command value. I've got that. I did get that the
It's
wrong
going
way
to
around.
take a while to
Regardless,
get the names right in which ones are which.
regardless
But
though, they're still yeah. I mean, as you say, they're quick. That Airax at not speed 9.
so
You mix in a couple of the command ones. It's not they're
the
pretty.
the Scintillax have got. So yeah, let's do this straight, right? So the big guys, Cerberus. You got Storm Laser Array, Exoplanar Bombard, and Las Cutters, so you either come with a Storm Laser or an Exoplanar Bombard, and you get the Las Cannons. Storm Laser Array, up to 24-inch range, no modifiers to hit, 3 dice, strength 4, rapid. It's good. Like you're not
Yeah.
getting the +1
And
at
elite
short
shield
range,
stripper.
but
Yeah.
yeah, that's half a Vulcan, isn't it? And the Exoplanar Bombard +1 to hit a short range of 8, long range is 16, 2 dice, strength 6, bypass. Strength 6 for bypass, aim at the little stuff, but it's not terrible. And then las
Aiming at
cutters,
the
as we
side
said.
or the rear, that's a bit more
Yeah,
tasty.
absolutely. And you can do it,
Mm.
and aiming, 2 dice, aiming at short range to hit a point that's hurt, so you're getting another +1 or +2. Could be
Mm.
really good. And that's 80 points for 2 and 40 points extra each. Yeah, it's not bad. Your Scintillax, so these are the guys, the command guys, the 4+ command guys. They can have, you have to pay to upgrade your las cutter to a storm laser or an exoplanar cannon, so it's only got one weapon.
The storm laser and the exoplanar cannon are smaller, much smaller versions of the ones on the big guys.
But they are the same rules.
In this, they are, yeah. Not quite. The exoplanar cannon doesn't have bypass.
Oh, it doesn't have bypass. That's it. So yeah, I'm thinking the range on those ones. I'm thinking the storm lasers. Give you a bit, but these guys are running in support, so you're going to want some of these guys because you want to be able to get commands off. So you're going to want these following in and around your army, and taking storm lasers on them for 10 points doesn't make them too expensive, or you can keep them really cheap and just have them literally as the command value with the option to run in and deal some damage. The Tenebrax, so
Shooting
they
them.
are either storm laser flenser or an exoplanar cannon. So the exoplanar cannon is the same as the little one, so it doesn't have bypass. Storm laser flenser, 30-inch range, +1 accuracy for long range, which is 8 to 30. 2 dice, strength 5. Cool.
I'm surprised that doesn't have rapid.
Yeah, or something, or shield
Mm.
bane, or
Mm.
something like that, or a version of that. But +1 to
Frankly,
hit, long range.
I'd rather have
Long,
3-4 rapid than I would 2-5 nothing.
difference is you
Admittedly,
can
with
do this from 30 inches away,
yeah, and +1 at that range as well, so you're
and
suddenly hitting on
+1 to
2
hit.
plus.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So it is a reliable 2 shots rather than fishing for 6s with 3 shots. The problem with rapid with only 3 dice is you are limiting how many rapids you are going to get. But
Yeah.
I think there are options. That what is good is do I take these guys with their 2 strength 5 shots +1 to hit, or do I take this guy with his 3 dice strength 4 rapid?
Mm.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a choice. And then the combat guys, the stalker banners. So as we said, they come with a las cutter, and you can buy a melter gun for 5 points. Which, frankly, why wouldn't you? Because they're all about getting up in the grill, and to have 2 fusion weapons will be pretty awesome.
Yeah, I agree.
I like these guys, I really do. I'd have to
Speed
write.
9. And they're so cheap.
Well, that's
Whereas
it, right?
I need to see how they compare. I should know this. How they compare. I wonder if I can look it up now while we're here. The how do they compare with armigers? because armigers you have to have a banner of knights to be able to take armigers.
You do, I think, yeah.
Armigers are so good
But
at
these
being the
Arax,
thing that go and pick up the objectives. This
sure.
gives traitors a brilliant thing, cheap thing to just chuck in the a little unit of Arax and have them go and grab
Well,
objectives.
the thing, right? You got a 4-up Iron Shield, yeah, on the Arax. Let's just look at the combat ones. I mean, they're combat. You're comparing them to Lancers, right?
Yeah.
They're weaker than Lancers in terms of structure points, and Lancers can have a really good iron save, but that iron save can be reduced.
Well,
Whereas this is always at
what do you
force.
have? What's a unit of 3 Lancers? About 270 points, something like that.
Something like that.
It's 200 and something. It's up there. Whereas this is only 50 points. So you need to be putting in bigger numbers of these guys before it starts to become comparable.
If you take all of them with melter guns, you take all 6 with melter guns, it's 180 points.
I mean, 6 melter guns.
And ironically, it has a better chance of surviving a bellicosa shot.
Yeah.
Because you've got a 4-up, less chance against, mid-range, mid-strength, maybe. Because a devastating hit will hurt them, but will kill one. But it's cool. I think they've got a place. Again, it's then how many do you have on the table? How much space do they take up? You need to have the other guys with them, so it's not a straight. When is it ever a straightforward comparison, right? Because Lancers go off by themselves and don't need.
It'll be an interesting one because you get in the box of the Stalker constructs rather than the Surplus ones, which are the big boys. The big ones you get 4 in a box. Great.
Sure.
The smaller ones you get 6 in the box, of which you have 2 of the command ones, 2 of the combat ones, and 2 of the shooty ones.
Right.
2
Okay.
Telemax, 2 Erax, and 2 Syntomax. So you're going to buy quite a few boxes to get to the maximum banner sizes of this.
Sure.
3.
Yeah. And I can see people making.
If you bought 3 boxes of them, you've then got maximum size of all 3 types.
But I don't think you're doing that with the command ones, right? You're having units of smaller units potentially dotted around in and amongst the army. So you then maybe take those 2 and maybe kit bash some of the others is an option. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see them get in hands of players and see what's going on. Obviously, it's all points. What it could do for traitors is, I've got a list and I'm like 130 points. Like, do I drop a Titan and then take a different Titan, or do I, what have you? Oh, I could throw some of these in. Now, even without orders, like you could just have a nifty little unit that can get around the table and.
That's why I think that to me is the real utility. These open up, or a couple of them. A couple of these Erax Stalker things at 50 points is a great little thing to drop in.
They're not knights, are they? So they don't benefit from any of the stuff. You can't, like, if something allows you to share your command value with knights or anything like that, that doesn't work.
But they are a banner.
They're a banner, but they're not a knight banner.
They're not a knight banner, no.
Technically. So we'll see. I can't wait to if this gets expanded on for 80. I think it'll be really cool. Something fresh as well for 80. Like, all of a sudden it's like something a bit different for the loyalists.
It's also it's quite nice that it's not just dropped in one thing. It's dropped in 4. It's dropped in a whole other class almost, which I think is super cool. And I love the idea of seeing a game where you have the big boys dueling it out, but then are you potentially, as a loyalist player, taking some knights to try and deal with these guys? And then you've got that secondary scale. It's not going into a full game of legions by any stretch, but you've got that secondary scale of a little bit of duking out at that lower scale, which I think is quite cool. Rather than just knights versus knights. It's quite nice. And
I'd love GW to drop a PDF of and here's a banner, a way to take a banner in an army, and some base rules for just minor advantage for taking a banner of these guys, equivalent of a household.
Yeah.
These guys would be super cool. Awesome. Excellent. Should we leave that all there then and
I
go
think that
and
covers
come
all the
back?
thoughts of them in Titanicus for sure.
Indeed. Right, let's do that. Well, we had a little think. We did a top five a short while ago, and we thought, oh yeah, top fives. We can do some more of them. So, Howard, would you like to explain what we're doing for our top five?
There's quite a few, as you say, top this and top that lists going around, but I wanted to just do. I mean, a lot of people are covering those. So we were talking about what we wanted to do, and we haven't talked about, and I think we can expand on this. We haven't talked about the battles, the setting, the things that really what we're recreating or what we're doing our own versions of. So I wanted to have a look at. Well, I threw it out there. What are our top five definitive, as always, with our top fives battles of the Horus Heresy? We're going to start with battles. We had a discussion about this. Do we go battles or do we go war zones? And it was always
Very
tempted for
different
me.
thing.
There's a real differential between those. There's some really big beats, key moments, huge poster moments in the heresy that are sort of tentpole things that hold the whole thing up. That ones that we all heard of, and then there are those more niche, much smaller, lesser moments that are can be hugely impactful, but they are much smaller, much in scale or how well they're known. The hipster choice, perhaps, as you're picking out the more unknown things to say, hey, I know all about this. It covers the full gamut of those. So we thought we'd start off with battles because it helps narrow it a bit. If you're just picking out what's your favourite complete campaign, those start to become a bit big, and I think we can look at that in more detail and look at perhaps how those are set as a setting for our games and otherwise. But we thought we'd kick off with
Yeah,
battles.
yeah. I say not even just campaigns, but bigger battles where you. If we're talking about war zones, for me, war zones means like more than just what's cool. It's like how did this affect things, and if we I say if we were to play it, or even just reading about it, like more it encompasses more than just like this was a cool story. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a different thing. Yeah, and we did ignore the Siege of Terror.
Yes.
Siege of Terror is not
That to me
allowed.
is its own thing. Much as Black Library treated it as its own thing,
Yeah,
it's so massive. There's so much going on in it. I think it wants to be its own thing.
you
And
could
set
do
it.
a top five battles of the Siege of Terror if you chose to. Um, there might be one in my list that touches on Siege of Terror, but it's not a Siege of Terror specific battle. Um,
Mm.
so yeah, otherwise we'd be sitting here going, "Oh yeah, cool. We just chose." Well, we choose two battles from the same blooming book, one above ground and one underground at the very same time. But yeah, we can do that at another point. So, do you want to start your number five? Did you put these in
Yeah,
actual 1 to 5 order, or is it just a
I
nebulous
did.
five?
That was you knew that I was going to probably go that way, but no, I did put them actually in a top five. It just so happens, and you're not going to believe me, but it just so happened that they ended up being pretty much in a chronological order.
Oh,
Um,
that's fine.
as it goes, broadly. My first one, because I took off, just so you know, I took off the ones that I had on my list that you picked as well. So they
I
are all going
wondered
to be.
if you might.
I thought because
Did
partly
I give you my final list?
probably not. No, so
Probably
that
not.
might have all been
So
scuppered anyway, but he's changed it in the
yeah,
last minute. Anyway, notionally, I tried to avoid the ones you picked. So my
sure.
first one, first siege of Hydrocordatus. I
Cool.
thought that was quite a cool one because I mean there are others in that sort of era that are cool. I thought that was quite a good one, partly because I wasn't expecting it when that was explored, and a return to there. That is one of the for those who weren't aware, Hydrocordatus is this scene of the Graham McNeil book, the 40k era book, Storm of Iron. and that came out many many years ago. And I read that, and it's still one of my favourite, I think, 40k novels, where the Iron Warriors turn up on an Imperial fortress world and they go for it and bring everything that they've got to bear to break that world and basically go after what's
It's
held in the fortress.
told from their point of view, or people
Indeed,
within
yes,
their camp. Yeah.
indeed, yeah. Um, this was featured. This is a well, it's the Iron Warriors coming out the back of File. So they've taken a bit of a kicking, and they say from the Imperial Fist, and they're like, we're pretty annoyed about that. We're going to go and try and humble you elsewhere. So they turn up at the Cadmean Citadel, which is on Hydrocordatus, and it's the Iron Warriors again going to break that, which is quite a cool setup. There's quite a lot there. Perturabo's there, and all the sort of key big names in the Iron Warriors Legion: Forex, Harkor, Sultan, Barb, and Falk, all the big guys. And then there's only a relatively lowly Imperial Fist commander there. It is very much a traitor victory, but the Imperial Fists sort of do themselves fairly proud on that. This was the subject. This was all covered in one of the. Well, it was in. So it was in one of the exemplary battles. One of the
Siege of
first ones.
Hydrocordatus.
Indeed, the sundering of the Cadmean Citadel. One of the first ones. It was also touched on. I think the idea of it was touched on in Angel Exterminatus as well. And it was
First two
in.
chapters.
Yeah.
Is this
Then
the one where they send in the assault troops?
yes.
It is, isn't it? Which was one of the coolest Iron Warriors moments, I think. Was like, yeah,
Yes.
jetpack troops. Yeah, we use them.
And then they go, "Oh, we've got a few tricks for you. Sorry,
Yeah.
these gravity things coming in, just knack them." Yeah, yeah. So it was one that stuck in my mind. There are several. I mean, I found the Iron Warriors featured quite heavily in my list of the ones where I was picking out, going through a list of all these battles, and helpfully there's quite a few things around that list out all these various battles, and there's a lot of them. Funnily enough, in this
Do
galaxy-spanning
you
cataclysmic conflict, but
do you have a
yeah,
passing interest in World War One grand scope
yeah.
battles by any chance?
Yeah,
Um,
this might be for you.
yeah. No, that's yeah, it is cool. It is cool. Don't get me wrong. I kind of have to remind myself of the names and what happened and stuff like that.
Oh, me too.
Yeah,
I had to with this as well. You're
big
suddenly
time.
reminded. Oh yeah, I remember that. I read about that 10 years ago. That was super cool.
Mm.
You've got to get into it that way. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's my first one. What
Kroger
was
got just
your
got Kroger just got angry at everything, didn't he? If I remember basically what happened. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so my list changed big time once we narrowed it down to battles rather than war zones, and certainly the first like number 5 and number 4 wouldn't have been chosen at all. I wouldn't even considered. But I'm going to go with the Nebula, which only just sneaked onto my list. So the Alexis Nebula.
Can you say that again? That just distorted slightly as I heard it.
Sorry,
Which one?
the Alexis Nebula was my
Okay, right.
first.
Okay. I thought you were going for a different one, but I suppose you've gone in a different order. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, well, it added on because once we kind of narrowed it down, I had a little think. So the Battle of the Alexis Nebula is the Space Wolf. Space Wolf's coming back from Prospero, suffering as they had lost quite a lot, taken quite a lot of damage, and they're ambushed by a sizable Alpha Legion force. And the thing is, we sort of knew that this happened pre-heresy, but we didn't know much beyond that this had happened. Uh, and they have to go into an immediate retreat, fleeing into the Alexis Nebula with the Alpha Legion hot on their horses, sending out distress signals to Jagatai Khan, who was around, who didn't know what was going on at the time, which leads to him ending up coming to find Russ, not taking their word for what's happened and going to find out for himself at Prospero. But Russ was aware that they were up a creek without a paddle at this point, and retreats to basically try and work out what to do going forwards. And within this battle, or the longer running battles, should we say, realizing that cool, I got a few things wrong. But eventually, deep within this is Alexis Nebula, they discover a Dark Angel star fort, the Chimera, which
This is
is
cool. Yeah.
which really interestingly is basically loyal to Luther. But they hear the distress call and come in to fight. And just before the Alpha Legion decide to belt it, they do have one attempt to try and cut the head off Russ by launching a Terminator assault onto the Hufnacle, which yeah, but which kind of goes wrong when Russ is there and identifies uh, Alfarius out of all these random Terminators, and he quickly bricks it. But with the help of the Dark Angels, they see off the Alpha Legion, and this Dark Angel Star Fort suddenly knows what's going on. But yeah, nothing really comes from that Star Fort. I don't think from there
Not
on.
really. It's a few
No.
operatives, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So they talk about going back to Caliban. So maybe it's a post heresy thing. Maybe there is a story that I don't know about. But it's quite cool in that that came out of nowhere, the Starfort thing. Obviously, we knew the Space Wolves were going to get back to Terra and go off again, or at least head back that way. But yeah, I think it's just quite a cool story. The Space Wolves are having to take a beating to, plot demands that they are, reduced as a legion. But it's in that weird environment where the people don't know there's a heresy going on. Yeah, I just think it's pretty cool.
There's also there's also the critical. There's that key part. I think is at the outset of it where there's the Space Wolves coming under attack from the Alpha Legion, and Russ calls out to Jagatai.
But I mentioned. Yeah, sorry, I did say. Yeah, he sends out the
I
distress
missed
signal. Sorry,
right.
and that alerts Jagatai to what's going on.
It
And
does.
from there, you then get because half his
There's quite
legion
the
have
end.
already.
There's quite the bitterness between the two, isn't there? Because
Yeah,
the White Scars don't come.
yeah, because Russ talks. They know they've raised Prospero,
Mm.
but the thing with Jagatai is he doesn't immediately jump onto either side.
No, no.
He doesn't. He was good friends with Magnus as well. Um, and Horace sends a message to him that Russ was a traitor, but the Khan's
Mm.
like, meh, doesn't seem right. Either way, like,
Either
let me
way,
go and
yeah,
find out
yeah,
what's going on.
yeah.
As his legion's splitting apart, his legion did make that jump. Horace would never do us wrong. Jagatai a bit more astute in that. Yeah, I think it's like it's not necessarily one like battle per se, but it's like a running thing with a lot of stuff around it. So that's my
Was
number
it Chris
5.
Wright? Was it Chris Wright who wrote Wolf King?
Oh, yes. Yeah, brilliant.
Okay, that explains it. I remember reading that and it being so cool the way he portrayed these infiltrators getting on board the Space Force ship. Now they're sort of running through the corridors, and you're thinking, "Oh my goodness, the Alpha Legion and these guys are incredible." And it
Yeah,
then turns out to be the Dark Angels, and the way he handled that and played with the expectation, I thought was
it's
superb.
one of my favourite short stories, which a lot of people read wrongly. They read weakness in Russ at this point, where I'm actually like, no, this is Russ's one of his greater moments was his
Mm,
ability to go, okay, we got it wrong. Like, we are not going to make a decision at the moment. We're going to retreat. And Bjorn, you're going to sit here as well. And
yeah.
if you tell me, okay, yeah, you might have a point, and then they come out of it much stronger.
Mm,
Not obviously not forces wise, but in terms of what Russ is and what he thinks of his legion, and going forwards, what he wants his legion to be.
mm.
Yeah, That's cool.
Yeah.
That's the Alexis
Cool
Nebula.
story. Has that knocked the one that you previously had at the top of your list off? The
Well,
Iron
there
Warrior
wasn't a
one.
top. There was just no. Well, we'll see. Won't
Okay, okay. I'm keeping the rest of mine as honourable mentions for the end. Okay,
Okay.
now
No.
my next one.
Yeah.
But partly because I was thinking about inserting that one
No,
at
don't do
last
that.
minute in place of this one. But all right, I'll stick with my list. The Battle of Vanaheim, which
Anaheim.
I had completely forgotten about until doing the research for this and doing some reading about this. I knew Vanaheim as a Forge World. You often see Vanaheim pattern, this, that, and the other from Forge World, no less. It being a Forge World and an Ice World, that and it's a fairly early Heresy conflict between the Space Wolves and, well, a whole mixture actually is between a sort of Shattered Legions force, eventually the Space Wolves, and the Iron Warriors again. An Iron Warriors fleet, a Warsmith Orberox Grolan. I had one, I had not a super famous one. The
Yeah.
72nd Grand Battalion turns up. He's sent on a task by Perturabo, and he says, "Well, actually, rather than just go and take this area, we're going to do rather better if we hold this very capable Forge World." And he says, I've got what I need to do this." And the only loyalist forces in place is a Shattered Legions warband, really, led by Kazin Rudrak of the Salamanders. And there's a sort of an early conflict between them where the Iron Warriors, there's a bit of a guerrilla war from the other guys, but really the traitors were always going to roll over quite well, but they do cause some serious problems with the Raven Guard, White Scars, and Salamanders, and certain Imperial Army elements doing that. So they're sort of keeping them there. They're keeping them in place, but the Iron Warriors roll over. Then a sort of splinter fleet, I suppose, of the Space Wolves arrives to sort of relieve the loyalists, having had a part of the all of the conflict with some Night Lords previously. They turn up and they were like, well, actually, whereas the Salamander made the call, I can't defeat these Iron Wolves, but I can hold them in place and really mess them up with the guerrilla war. Space Wolves' fourth company, great company, turn up and go, yeah, actually, we can take the whole world and take on the Iron Warriors. Turns out the Iron Warriors are pretty good at what they do. And did they while what is it? Is it who's the commander in that run? Skyblade, the Captain Skyblade of the Space Wolves, is sort of quite the fiery Space Wolf in that classic version of them. Takes on the Iron Warriors, but the Iron Warriors kind of hold out, and while they do manage to bring down the transport, the assault transports that Skyblade's on, he leads quite an aggressive final assault to try and take them on, try and take out this Iron Spire. He's shot down, and they presume he's lost. While that sort of closing action's taking place, and the Fourth Great Company are taking a bit of a kicking, the Space Wolves' main fleet arrives with Leman Russ himself, and he's not best pleased. So they turn up, scatter the Iron Warriors pretty quickly, and they turn up. Vanaheim at this point, I should put it for context, has declared neutrality. So both sides are trying to hold this place, but the actual tech priests themselves aren't joining one side or the other. Russ turns up, and this is on the back of all of those conflicts we just spoke about.
Yeah.
They've been through Prospero, they've been through Alexis, Nebula. He's turned up, so they're not in the best place. He turns up, scatters this sizable fleet of Iron Warriors, and says, "Right, we've got them now, and get them out of the system." Calls on the tech priests to join him. Calls on the Mechanicum, join us. We'll get this done. Tech priests refuse. They say, no, we're staying out of this. We're declaring neutrality. This doesn't go down well with Leman Russ, and he just declares, right, that's it. Hold our position, absolutely bombard the capital hive, which is super shielded. While the bombardment's taking place, those shields collapse. They're not expected to, because it turns out that the Skyblade commander actually did make it through and manages to do a guerrilla action to take out the shields. Completely destroys the Vanaheim's capital hive and its 300 million inhabitants. So a pretty ruthless action by the Space Wolves. The Space Wolves then declare. Leman Russ decides the only way to take victory here meaningfully without it being absolutely catastrophic for the forces he has in hand is actually I'm going to withdraw all of the loyalist forces on in this area, in this field, and make that the victory is extracting all these forces and leave the rest to the Iron Warriors. And I thought that was just it was one of these more swinging battles and protracted things going backwards and forwards, which I remember reading at the time, and it really got into the nitty gritty of that sort of mid period, or what that beginning of the mid period
Yeah,
of heresy. It really covered that, and I thought
I
it also showed that the loyalist forces can be pretty
yeah,
ruthless when they need to be.
I can't remember this battle at all. Like I can't remember reading it at all. It's in Book 6, Retribution, and in
Yeah,
Aeronautica Imperialis. But so I went on to Lexicanum to read up about it. And it's like, oh yeah, it is awesome. I might go and reread this. What I like is the aftermath bit here, which is the Iron Warriors claim victory. Vanaheim becomes a major centre for resupplying traitor forces, although it has been much reduced from where it was. When Vanaheim was eventually retaken by the Imperium in the Great Scouring, a small loyalist force drawn from 4 Space Marine legions re-emerged, having kept up the fight all these years.
so cool.
So people did survive on there and were still fighting. So that's pretty
But not
awesome.
only
Yeah,
that,
that
also enough of them to be represented from presumably salamanders, iron hands,
Space Wolves and
space wolves, and white scars. that's
yeah.
quite a that's
Oh,
quite a
there was
good little force.
Salamanders, Raven Guard, yeah, White Scars.
Oh,
But
Raven
yeah,
Guard, not iron hands. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Yeah,
no, awesome. Yeah, that's made me want to go and check that out actually. Um, it's
yeah.
a
It was
typical
one
space.
that I had completely forgotten. I'm trying to find some more lesser known ones that we don't already have this preconception
Sure.
about. And I was trying to remember what some of those were. And that one, because the name of the Forge World rung out to me, and it suddenly went, oh yeah, I remember that, where they filled in what happened here. And actually it was a really crunchy one. I thought, like, whereas it has a lot going on in it, I thought it was pretty cool. Yeah, so I would encourage people to go back and have a look at that for if you've still got Book 6 Retribution on your shelf. Worth a real reread.
Indeed. Um, my next story does feature the Warden of the Pharos, the everyone's favourite Iron Warrior, Barbarous Dantioch, who was in charge of the defence of the Shadenhold, which was an
Spooky
upside
idea.
down fortress in the ceiling of this cavernous area. Um, 366 days commanding meagre forces against 51st Expedition Fleet and the 14th Grand Company, which towards the end of the siege, a Nurgle aligned Emperor class. As soon as you put an Emperor class Titan down on a on a battlefield, something bad's going to happen to whoever's fielding it. Yeah, Emperor class Titan was deployed against him and finally breaching the fortress's defense. And it's been a long time since I read this story, but they're like, yeah, cool, we're finally going to get it. Awesome. We really want this place. And Dantioch's like, yeah, that's not going to happen. Like, you're on brothers and I will make you pay. He evacuates everyone and sets demolition charges, which makes the whole entire fortress fall to its destruction. Which is amazing, really. So petty in a way. Um, but yeah, they spent all this time trying to get this incredible resource, and he's just like, nope. And the best of it is he teleported to the traitors' flagship, um, told them they were traitors, and flew away. So, and killed a few people. Amazing. And then ended up doing, having one of the greatest love stories in the history of Warhammer. So yeah, I just go and read The Iron Within, because it's awesome.
This featured on both our lists, and I'm very glad it's still in yours because it was. Yeah, it's very telling that this is just that one short story brings us that character, and it's been stuck with us both. Even though, I mean, when would that have come out? That came out a long time ago. I don't think I've read it since. I'm almost certainly going to read that possibly this evening after we finish here. I need to reread that story. It's such a cool. It's by Rob Saunders, and I still can't tell you when it came out. Doesn't matter. Very cool story. Yeah. Good choice.
There's something about the character that's willing to destroy everything that they were protecting just to stop it going into his hands. Like, I don't know, it's such a simple, um, such a simple kind of concept, but I think it's brilliant, and he's super cool. When did it come out? I was just trying to find out when it came out. Oh, Black Library's
Yeah, I was
website. I
trying to
haven't
say
been
now,
here
I
in a
can't
while.
see it. I vaguely remember it was one of the first stories,
Age of
rather than
Darkness.
more historical things. It was one of the earlier stories where you had a case of a loyalist faction of a traditional traitor legion, or regardless, two sides of the same
Yeah,
legion confronting, and one side resolutely saying, "No, no, we're staying loyal." Now, obviously, Isfan has an element of that. But this, exploring this within one of those other legions, the Iron Warriors in this case, seeing the two sides of the same legion kind of butt up against like this, and then be personified with these two very interesting characters, particularly in the case of Dantiog.
yeah.
Yeah.
2011
Cool.
came out.
Okay, so it was early on. Yeah.
Yeah, groovy. That's it. Caesar Schadenhut. What's your number 3?
Getting into some slightly bigger ones now. My number 3 is the Battle of Molech. Now
Cool.
that is a bit of a milestone one. I don't remember that early doors in the Heresy before the Heresy was really explored by Black Library and Forge World in their respective ways. It didn't strike me as one of the major beats of the Heresy. It became this significant moment. I do remember reading the battle reports in, I think it was in White Dwarf, that is in the Titan Legions era, that this battle ends up being reflected on when they explored it. I think it was Graham McNeil wrote the Vengeful Spirit.
Yeah.
And when this was mapped out, there was a huge Titan Legions, epic Titan Legions game when and a bunch of knights end up stabbing an Emperor class Titan in the back, and it blows up, and that ends up being a part of this narrative, where a whole knight household turns. But the key thing of the Battle of Molech is, was it late Middle Era heresy, if you're going to go in those terms. It's enormous. It's pretty much the entirety of the Sons of Horus, well, a huge portion of the Sons of Horus under Horus and Abaddon, along with the Death Guard in significant numbers as well, with Mortarion, taking on this major world, this pretty significant world for the Imperium, which is held with a lot of Imperial forces, multiple knight households, huge amounts of the Imperial army, and Ultramarines and Blood Angels there as well, with a sort of honor guard. Now, the reason for this is because that Molech holds, and spoilers for those who haven't read it, Molech holds a bit of a secret on it. It's got a route, or a part of it, a doorway, if you will, to the route that the Emperor took when confronting the Chaos Gods. And I'm simplifying dramatically here. Horus wants a piece of this. Horus wants to follow that route, and it's how he has to break through this enormous defensive bastion that's been put there. Not least of which, that's a major tactical thing to break anyway. And you get to see the Sons of Horus and the Death Guard kind of unleashed on a grand scale, in a way that you don't typically see, actually. And being that they're
Only at the
such
siege.
until the siege. So when you're seeing this in the middle of the war, and they're really bringing all the toys. I mean, they're bringing multiple Titan legions to bear. They're really bringing the full hammer for this. You get to see the Death Guards move towards some pretty grim, embracing aspects of chaos. They've got Grulgor, who's taken in the Destroyer Hive and becomes this absolutely horrendous living weapon, just spreading disease, etc., ahead of him. And the Sons of Horus doing what they do of striking out, and in turn, all of the machinations taking place as well, where Horus manages to turn the already fractious relationships between the knight households, and at a crucial moment turns House Divine, manages to let Slanesh do their work and does their work and turns House Divine against the Imperium, and they manage to lay low this yet again an Emperor class Titan, which is the absolute key to Legio Crucius's defense. And they destroy that, and that blows an almighty hole in their defense, in the Imperial defense, and ultimately leads Horus to get what he was after. Very cool story, and one on a grand scale. Makes me sort of think of it's both nostalgic for me because it makes me think of that Titan Legions era. Albeit that was set in 40k, but there was aspects of that you could obviously play through in Epic and Titanicus's origins in the Horus Heresy. But it makes me think of that era, but then also makes me think of these enormous battles that the Heresy is known for.
For sure. That's cool. It probably potentially would have made it onto a Warzones one for me.
I think there's enough conflicts for that in this.
Well, you've got a planet to talk about.
Yeah, fair enough.
At the end of the day, and you've got 3 or 4 different features in that battle. Whether it's the Blood Angels, the Death Guard, the House Divine, the Titans themselves. Yeah, all of that. There's a lot going on. Almost too much for a novel, really. But it's surprising there hasn't been more written about it outside of the novel. A little bit in an AT book, and that's about it. So, yeah, I wonder if they'll revisit that at some point. There's a lot to cover. Yes. I've got a couple of biggish ones now, actually. And number 3, I think I'm going to put Isfan 3.
Okay.
Because there's something about Legion fighting the same Legion, for starters.
Yeah.
Which brings a bit of spiciness to what's going on. On top of that, people didn't know what was going on in the battle itself. You've got Angron ruining everything from the start. The only reason we have a battle on this Fan 3 is because Angron can't, Leroy Jenkins it. And then within that, you've got all the little stories. You've got Carmosian, you've got Lucius and Soltavitz, all that little bit. But you've also got is it Soltavitz where it's whoever's there and then they hear Angron roar and all the world eaters just turn around to him and go, "Yeah, this is not your fight, mate. Like, you go. We deal with this guy." You got the fact that they held out for like weeks, on that planet, growing up, like allowing the heresy to unfold in a way that it would never have had they done it. And I quite like the fact that although it's a massive scale fight, it's actually quite restricted in the legions involved. Yeah, I don't know. There's something about Isfan 3 more than the Drop Site Massacre in a way. I think the Drop Site Massacre is almost too big. There's so much there, but Isfan 3 feels a bit more personal. And yeah, cool stories to tell.
There are actually, yes, and obviously it's sort of kicking the whole thing off. But it can't. It basically is, isn't it? It's the first. Is it the first battle?
Well, I mean, there's arguments that Prospero's. I can't remember. Prospero and Calth happened relatively around the same time, but they could happen and then not be a heresy. Like the Warbearers could turn on the Ultramarines and you don't have a heresy. Space Wolves can turn. Magnus can ruin everything and then not be a heresy. But Zisfan 3 is where the heresy starts.
Yeah.
And there are. I think also partly in like if I was to have a big camp like an Isfan 3 campaign, I think would be so cool. I think it would be one of my favourite kind of campaigns to do. Like if I could, which I wouldn't. It's a shame that I don't really go for any of those legions, but even to the point where the space Sons of Horus want to paint their armor back to lunar walls, that's who they're fighting as.
Mm.
I think it's super cool. There's some silly stuff in Galaxy in Flames, so I don't think Galaxy in Flames is a great book, but there is lots of cool stories around Isfan 3.
Like with a lot of these, and particularly this one, actually, I think it's one that could do with you could happily revisit this. I
Oh
think
yeah,
as a set. Again, I think like you say, but as with Molech and as probably with certainly with the next one, they are perhaps more erring on the side of war zones, where there's a lot going on in it, and could be explored accordingly. I mean, there's one pretty key moment in Isfan 3, so I think that's true. But there's a lot that the side stories there. Like we don't know all that much about several of the. We don't know that much about the Death Guard loyalists, for example. And so much about the World Eaters loyalists. They've all touched on in the books and stories from that. But I feel like there's a lot more that could be told there, and it would still be pretty good stuff. Yeah, good choice. I mean, an essential choice, some would say.
essentially.
Right,
Go
my
for it.
number two, which is the one I think is airing closest to actually it should be a war zone. I'm pretty sure it is, but it was listed as a battle, so I'm going for it. Battle of Talon.
It was close. I was close to putting Talon on.
Like
Love it.
Talon a lot. I had to revisit it recently, partly because I had a bit of an Iron Warrior thing going on, so there's a theme in my list. But having revisited John French's work, covering the Battle of Talon in his various forms that he did in his novellas and in their audio form, it's such a cool tale. Now it is one of those bigger beats of the Heresy. It's one we knew was going to be a significant moment, yet at its base, it was actually only involving the Iron Warriors and the Imperial Army at Talon. It's been expanded to be a hell of a lot more than that.
Well,
But it
originally there
being
was like Space Wars there and everything. So,
that,
or not, maybe not
oh,
originally. At one point,
yes,
Lehman
fair
Russ was
enough.
supposed to chop the head off a Warhound Titan and things like that.
Oh, that
So
was at Talon. Okay,
I
cool. I
believe
didn't
so.
know.
I could be wrong. Someone might be able to point out. I thought that was at Talon,
Yeah,
but it wouldn't fit.
my understanding of it was always almost from the 40k perspective was, oh yeah, this happened in the Heresy, and that's why Talon is the way it is now in Warhammer 40k. Um, Yeah, and when that got expanded out to be again the Iron Warriors, and there's that, it was one of those moments you knew it was coming, and seeing the moment when the Iron Warriors turn up, having been through the Angel Exterminatus, coming back out of the Eye of Terror, they've seen some stuff. They turn up, they're pretty bitter by this point, even by their standards. They turn up, and we're not messing around. We need a thing. We're going to completely turn this into organic soup. Those virus bombs we used at Isfahan? Yeah, we've made them a little bit more, even nastier than they were. And so they unleash that in its full force and turn this absolute sort of paradise world into a toxic soup, really. Which means even Marines can't, even in all their power armored glory, can't survive out on the surface for very long at all without eating through the seals and killing them outright very quickly. So it's armored vehicles only, and a number of battles ensue, and you hear about the different parts of that. So that's why this is pushing the boundaries of whether this is a war zone. I think it probably is actually, even though as I talk about it out loud. But you get this fantastic armored conflict, and the way I think John French captured that in those books, and most recently we've seen it covered in the Devastation of Talon book, or even that's only really the opening moments of that. You get that grand scale of what the heresy can be with armored vehicles clashing against each other. It's one of those areas where you see the Imperial Army, perhaps more the Imperial Army than the Solar Auxilia, but I use the Imperial Army openly. They're seeing their formations of armored vehicles and what that means and what that represents in this period, and even how you can see human soldiers, quite capable human forces, be capable of taking on an Astartes force. I think is very cool. Being able to see them actually do that, and yeah, they take an absolute kicking in places, and the panic and the nightmarishness of engaging, but still representing something that is not swept aside in a day by a Space Marine Legion, and the reason why a Space Marine Legion perhaps is holding back and can't deploy everything, and then it starting to become this magnet of drawing in all these different elements, and actually becoming almost like a rally point, but a rallying call perhaps to, well, if you haven't got a cause, but you know this fight's taking place, you know this fight against Horus is taking place, come here and it means something. So you're drawing in all these different factions, and then the Iron Warriors just get told, "You're making this too much of a waste. I need you to cut. I need." And Horus puts his foot down and says, "You need to get out of there." And
Well, that and they find what they're looking for, and it's massive disappointment
yeah,
for
and it's this
Perturabo.
isn't actually. This is going to make me just as bad. Yeah,
Wow.
quite.
This is not
And
what I
yeah,
signed up for. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And then that obviously has repercussions later, or foreshadows where that ultimately goes with Perturabo. Yeah, it's one that I think of when I think of the heresy, and seeing it and having revisited it recently, it was one that still strikes very strong with me. So big fan of Talon.
Cool. Excellent. My next one is actually the longest battle in the whole of the Heresy.
Longest, interesting.
Yes. The War in the Webway.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Because it starts from that moment that Magnus dooms the whole of humanity and breaks the door. Well, he does. It's no joke. He dooms it.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, absolutely.
40k
Yeah.
is
No,
screwed from the
I
point.
laugh because of the enormity of it, and you're like, and it's rarely phrased in that way.
No, I mean, there is that one bit where it's like, yeah, it was like as soon as that happened, that was it. Um,
Yeah.
Humanity has no future outside of chaos involvement. Um, and from that moment on, till they can shut the doors and entomb the Emperor, they're fighting this battle in the webway to to save Terra. So all the time that this the real battle on in the real world's happening, there's just Custodes, there's Mechanicum, there's Sisters of Silence, and there's Titans, Psi Titans fighting this tide of mainly demons, but later on, Space Marines and Titans are all sent through the Wellway for 5 years. I think it is, through the Impossible City, and within all that, again, we only see these little bits, these little stories of the Psi Titan, of Zephon being taken down there, the little glimpses we get of Ra and the first murder and
Mm.
Draconian. Uh, yeah, so much stuff going on, and then the little bits of the expeditionary forces out to try and link up with Mars, and uh, and eventually, like the last bit we kind of really see of it is Vulcan's walkthrough to to deal with Magnus. Uh, it's it's the weirdest one as well. Like it's the webway. It's the
Mm.
what even is it? We know that bit near the door was the Emperor was basically bricking up the roadways so they were safe, but or not bricking them up, but solidifying, actually putting a physical barrier in place. But yeah, um, the whole kind of all this fighting's going on, even though it it ultimately cannot win. All they can do is hope to stave them off till the doors are shut. But it's still a loss.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
It's, I mean, it's such a, yeah, it's such a pivotal thing. It was hinted at even. I mean, it did exist, but it wasn't explored. It was explored in the card game, I
The
think,
card
was
game
the
and the
first
books
time.
that came out with it when they
Yeah,
confirmed that the great plan was this
yeah,
to stabilize the webways to be free of the having to use the Imperium.
Yeah.
But yeah,
We
we
won't
didn't even know
use
there
all.
was a webway portal on Terra, I don't think, till that point.
No, I agree. So the Sabretooth Games card game did that. As you say, the Visions of Heresy books did it and explored it, and to some degree, the board game that came out, the Fantasy Flight board game of the Horus
Added
Heresy, did
in,
it,
yeah.
and it gets explored much more as a key point in the library, in the Black Library books, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, what
Echoes
a
of
book!
Eternity, particularly, yeah, and Master of Mankind.
Yeah,
But yeah, so cool. So cool.
some very, very of the coolest, highest stakes and sort of highest theatre, I would say, in some of that, some of those moments. These really conceptual conflicts and really trippy moments, like you say, the side titans getting involved and stuff. That was
The
there's
the
stories
least
in that.
human on both sides as well. Like there's
Yeah,
no, by nature of being exposed to the warp, you don't want to send any level of humanity down there if you can help it. So
mm.
the Martians that go down there are so far removed from humanity, and they even send Zephon down as a test to see if Space Marines are immune to it, or whether they'll
Yeah.
succumb to that, the nature of what's going on. They're like, no, it's custodies and sisters, silence for now. Thank you very much, and robots. So
Yeah, cool. Yeah,
awesome.
pretty cool. So my number one on this list is the Battle of Pluto.
Ooh,
That was my number one, and partly again because it's that knocking on the door of what we're about to see. It's part of the solar war, but not
Parent
the
Siege.
siege
I'll
per
let
se.
you off that. Yeah.
I just about skirt it, I think. I hope. The book wasn't part of the siege, so surely. Yeah, anyway, the I think
Solar War was.
that yeah, true. The solar war was yeah, true. Conflict of the solar
It
war
very much
was
was. It's very much the
yeah, the solar
opening of
war
the
clearly
siege.
was yeah.
But we'll let you off.
The Alpha Legion's attempt uh, just to have a go to test the defenses, if you like, or it depends what your belief was or what their ultimate aim was. Was it to actually almost get ahead of everyone else and actually break it before the full need of the full might of the of Horus's forces, or was it just to get other information, or was it both? See what they could do. Either way, Alpha Legion mobilizes en masse and uses all of its capabilities and planning that it's been doing for decades to and mobilizes all of its assets and all of its clever wiles against really predominantly the Imperial fists, and about what they're and about how they've prepared. And those first times, the way that story unfolds, and it's the alarms start ringing, and it's really testing and saying, "Well, are you say you've prepared, but are you ready for this? Are you ready for the myriad ways that will undo your defense? You think you're safe here behind your walls, but we're going to really test that." I think that explores it very well. It's a battle that's fought in multiple spheres simultaneously. So you've kind of got the enemy within the agents, counter agents, and assets working against each other within Terror and the full defense of the solar system. But also there's this more traditional fleet moving silently, and they try to take Pluto, and that ultimately ends up with Alpharius himself turning up and taking on Rogel Dawn. And that
Well, did he
concludes,
want to take him on? Yeah.
well, indeed, that ultimately ends in that way.
Yes.
And it ends with a very, with because at that up to that point, Rogel Dawn hadn't been able to do a great deal in terms of one-on-one combat, actually get involved with the combat because his role was to fortify Terra. This is the first time Terra's coming under direct assault in some way. And he gets involved and takes on Alpharius and kills him.
Yes,
And
he
I think
does.
that was one of the oh, did he? And then that
Oh, yes, he
is one
does.
of those he does. He clearly does. And that I thought was I mean, that still had that moment of wow, okay, people are gonna
Yeah.
die in this, aren't they?
Big moment.
Um
Yeah.
it was a huge moment, and I think it's resonance for that, as well as just being a very cool battle. And I still think those closing moments in the book where Alfarius is reporting back to Horus, and he gives him I think it might even be in the opening the next book, but he's there. Alfarius is reporting back to Horus to say, and gives him this complete map of the defences and force dispositions, etc. Everything they've managed to learn in this engagement, but then holds out the dagger and shatters it in front of Horus to say, "That's cost you the Alpha Legion in some ways." I thought that was a very cool moment as well. Yeah, cool battle. I thought with some very pivotal moments.
I was trying to remember the details of it, apart from the moon, one of the moons exploding, or whatever it was, one of the not moons, but
I know what you mean. One of the stations, I think, around
stations,
Pluto.
yeah, exploding. That was cool. But they got the exemplary battle of it as well that you can play.
It's one of the early exemplary battles, I
Yeah,
think, wasn't it?
Hydra's devastation, which is pretty cool. I think it's an interesting one. I wouldn't necessarily have thought of that. But yeah, that's super cool. Certainly is an impactful story.
It is.
Awesome. I've actually realised my number one is actually quite a big battle as well, but I've chosen it because I think it's possibly one of the most realistic battles in terms of how it's portrayed, even though some of the events of it are way OTT, which is great. And it's the Battle of Armatura. So part of the Shadow Crusade, we see Lorgar and Angron both on the field. We get to read about what war in a city probably really is like, in terms of there's just dust everywhere and they're trying to identify the enemy from just, who's running at me. Is it my friends or is it the enemy? Can we afford to take the risk? We get Angron being stepped on by a Titan. We get Titans running around doing all kinds of stuff. We get Lorgar being Lorgar. Lots of Khan phasing out and waking up around bodies. We get what's his name? Argel Tal in there as well. Yeah. Armature is like, it's a weird one in that it's like the gritty film of the crazy fight. So
Yeah.
it's, Armature is it's a training world for the Ultramarines. They know that they're really on the back foot with everything that's going on. They're going to fight it out. They know that they're going to struggle with all these world edicts coming at them. As I say, there's debris, dust everywhere. It's all crazy, and it's brutal, and it's brilliantly written. And yeah, just like, if you're going to talk about a war film, like No Fear would make an amazing film, but it's on the little bit more of the heroic side. This tends to be a little bit more on the, we're going to show you what really happens in war, except obviously it's not. Um,
Only,
this
like you
is,
say, it's a bit more bitter somehow because it's that
yeah,
bit later on, and
there's nothing
the
glorious about Armatura.
shock of the betrayal
Yeah,
has happened. This is pure. We all know where we stand. Now we're just going to wrestle this out. We're just going to fight this out by whatever means necessary.
even, 'cause there's a counter attack, isn't there, on the flagship? Because the Triarii are involved. But yeah, even right at the end when Orfeo, the Ultramarines, like their remaining dude, can't remember what position he
Mm.
was, is
Legard's
stood there,
years.
and Khan's like, it's over, and they're like, yeah, it's over. Okay, it's over. I'll accept your surrender. Like, Orfeo knows that there's no way he's coming out of this alive, so he will still play the
Yeah,
game. And then Angron steps in. It's just like, I'm going to finish this. Right.
yeah,
So there's not even a glorious like last fight against Khan where maybe he can do something. It's no, Angron's like, I will pound this guy into the ground. Thank you very much. Um, yeah, it's got everything, I think. Um, yeah,
It's very evocative of what the heresy meat grinder kind of is.
and as I say, just there's no flash in it. Like there's no, particularly when you're seeing it from Khan's point of view, where he's just coming around and it's just like dead bodies everywhere, and it's like, where's the next? Where do I need to be next? Where do I need to be next? In this
Were you
crazy kind
aware
of
of it? Were you aware of Armatura, or was there any hint of it prior to it being a book?
good question. Not that I'm aware of. I don't think so. No.
Me neither. I mean, it wasn't one that occurred
I'd,
to me, or
I'd
I was
like to,
aware of.
yeah, I'd like to talk to Aaron about it actually. If there was anything around or whether it was just his viewpoint. Maybe I'll try and get a hold of him
It feels
and
like it's
get
one
an
of those
idea of
things
it.
that was probably a footnote or was mentioned. It was probably a
Yeah,
caption beneath one of those
or
photos that was in an epic rulebook or something
yeah,
that
or he's
led
just
to
looked
it
at the
becoming.
500 worlds and gone, "Oh, training world." Like obviously
Yeah.
there'll be a big fight in a training world. Like they've got all the people. So yeah, that kind of thing. And yet,
I thought the setup in that book was so strong, and it's actually one of the things I remember most about that, along with Khan running up the shields and jumping over them. Is the setup where Lorgar is talking to Magnus over using psychic shenanigans, and he says, "I'm going after Armatura," and Magnus is like, "Sorry, what? Are you mad? That's Armatura." I mean, the way he portrays it and the way that's written to be, well, it's all known to us, and clearly you're not going to
yeah,
attack that. That
you,
would be crazy.
yeah, and that's we
Love
talked
it.
about this before, but someone else pointed it out. Darth Vader turns around to Boba Fett
Yeah,
and says, "No disintegrations." You don't need to know what happened. You just need to know that something happened where he picks Boba Fett out and says, "No disintegrations," and he's not like overly angry. There's a story there. When
yeah,
Magnus says, "Oh, really, Armatura?" It's like, cool, okay. Don't have to tell me anything about Armatura except that this is going to be a tough nut to crack. Like, you're going to bloody your face doing it. Yeah, I don't need to know the details.
yeah,
Already know enough. It's a
yeah,
really good way
exactly.
of doing it. And
There's a
even to the
couple. Yeah,
point where
yeah.
you've got the two Abyss class battleships coming. They're not taking it lightly. You've got the Blessed Lady and the Troisagion.
Isagian, I think, but yeah,
Presagian, yeah, that would be the one. Trying to remember, but yeah, you've got two Gloriana class battleships as well. Like
yeah,
it's a big old fight. But yeah, that is my main one. And as you say, you know um there were ones that we could have chosen that were on the list. That Fal was close. I
yes,
think had they not been told to go away and then it kind of ruins it a little bit for me. Not ruins the story, but it's like, oh, you had them, and
yeah.
then you were pulled away. But File was definitely an option for me.
It was on my list as well. It was on my list of my short list of what to pick.
Beta Garmin is a
Um,
big one, but I almost think Beta Garmin's
Beta Garmin's so big though. It feels like that is
that's it.
again
It's
the
different.
same as Calth. I mean, Calth is huge.
Yeah.
You touched on it. Isfan 5 probably. I think even Talon. I think I'm just pushing it with that one. I think those are more closer towards a Mars.
Well,
Those aren't
Mars is
battles.
different because
But
Mars,
I suppose Mars because it's blockaded. Yeah.
yeah, so we know about battles on Mars rather than
Mm.
this big grand um, campaign across multiple worlds or anything like that. It is kept to
Yeah.
Mars and it is focused. Like our stories are focused. Well, now we've got like two or three different locations that we really know about, and Mars was a potential for me. But yeah,
Yeah. And
there's
but
this. And when
Shadow Crusade then perhaps is a better example of the one where it's over
yeah,
multiple worlds. There's not only even the one world is a pretty big thing, but it's over multiple worlds. Like I agree. Cygnus Cluster being one of them.
yeah, Paramar 5 was a potential option, but you
Yes,
led in a little bit of that linked in.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, that was on my
and,
list for sure. Mm.
and then
But
you got
Beta
the
Garmin has become something that's so massive.
yes.
That there's so much going on there. It felt like that needs a whole other whole other conversation.
Dark Angels versus the Night Lords, like that Black Book, the Dark Angels Black Book had some of the fights around that kind of chasing each other were really good as well. And then part of me was considering the Blood Angels as Cygnus Prime, because there are aspects of that I really like, but I think some of it's a bit almost OTT to be. You had the Battle of Dwell. How much do we know about the Battle of Dwell?
Not a lot, but it's a bit like those moments, which is why it didn't make into the 5. There are moments in it that are significant, that
Echo,
are very
yeah.
memorable. I mean,
Yeah, they
like
ripple out,
Horace
yeah.
leaping out to smash well, first of all, Meduson making his move to show that he's a real thorn in their side and a meaningful one, where he's hidden a couple of fire raptors. He's managed to sneak them in. They pop up, absolutely deeply hurt Mortarion, and you see Horace leaping out and smashing the canopy.
Again, the beauty of that, though, is that's post-battle.
Yeah, true.
I get
Yeah.
you linked in, but they already call him Shadrach Bloody Meduson, so
Yeah.
it's not that action where he earns the bloody. Like, he's earned that beforehand. So again, you've got this big space where you're like, whoever Meduson was beforehand, he did enough to be sworn at, essentially, where very few people are. So fair play to the guy.
Yeah. And there's moment, and Axaman losing his face, etc.
Yeah.
It's just quite a cool moment up there. Not Trisagion. There's the battle where basically the Space Wolves take on the entirety of the traitor forces
Yarrant.
about to hit Earth.
Is that
That's
Yarrant?
a cool one.
Yeah.
No. One with the spear. Trisolian, that's it. Battle of
sorry, yes.
Trisolian.
Yeah.
It was Space Wolves taking
Oh,
on
I'm with you. Sorry.
all
Yeah.
of the traitor legions and actually getting quite close to doing what they needed to
Yeah. Oh,
do.
well, yeah.
But
I mean, that one blow away from
arguably doing
ending.
what they needed to do. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There are, there's some space battles as well, and that kind of thing. And then I started to think actually of some of the really cool Great Crusade stories, but I was like, I'm not getting into that. Like, we'll keep it a
That goes
heresy.
mad, doesn't it? Yeah, it goes well. Yeah,
Yeah.
the Rangdan things. There's a whole story which I didn't know existed, where there's something to do at the very end of the Rangda thing with the Dark Angels and Horus. It's a heresy story, the Battle of the Rangda system. I'm like, whoa! I don't even remember that. Where did that come up? There's a few of these that actually start to come up. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
okay, that's something
A
I need to
Wolf of
look into.
Ash and Fire, like
Yeah,
that whole fight there with the Emperor's managing himself to get separated from his bodyguards, all that kind of thing. Yeah, so good. Cool.
as a
Anyway,
setting. But then there's plenty as well that haven't been explored. That it seems that
oh
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
Siege of Baal, the Siege of Inwit. Siege of Inwit feels like it's going to get a book. There's the books we've had recently all make reference to it, and it's sort of building up to something. And you think, well, yeah, maybe they'll explore those in the campaign books. Also, there's a lot more conflicts mentioned between Titans in the various Titan in
yeah,
just Titanic books and things than I realised. Actually making up with you sort of Titan on Titan fights, which presumably had other forces as well. There's a lot of them. There's quite a lot of this. It's not obviously it's majority Space Marines fighting something, but yeah, there's a lot more to it as well. Big old space, isn't it? This Horus
oh
Heresy thing.
yeah. Well, let's explore some more of it in 2025. Let us know what ones you think we really missed out on.
Yeah,
If
and
there are
how
any
silly
specific for you.
our choices were, of course, which is
Yep.
wrong, of course.
Because these are categorically the top 5.
Yeah,
So,
fixed. Yeah,
but
locked in.
you actually did a top 5, which is good. Rather than just a random of my favourite 5. But,
I can't let Greg down again, surely.
no, well, yeah, plenty of times. So yes, there we go. Awesome. We'll leave it there, and thank you very much.
See you soon, Greg.
Take care. joining me now, we have good friend of the show, Zac, and a new voice on the show, Derek. How you doing, gentlemen?
Doing great.
Good. Doing really well.
Excellent. So we have got you on because you are involved with Adepticon Heresy. For hopefully this will be informative for people going, but maybe people who aren't going as well, who are interested in what's going on. Before we jump in anywhere, we need to say there are two separate kind of streams for Heresy. Is that correct?
Yeah,
I
there are
guess
essentially two channels. Yes.
Yep.
Sure. So there's
two separate narrative tracks. Yes.
That's a good way of doing it. So, what are they? What are those two, and which one are you doing?
So Zach and I are doing there's the Grail Abyss track, which is me, Zach, and then we're also working with the Accountability Buddies, who are helping with some events as well. And then we also, on the other side, have got Lucas and Eric that are doing the Fearix narrative track, tying into. They've been running the Fearix narrative for a few years now, and that's ever evolving.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a name that will be known by people everywhere. I think the Ferrix, because it's been running a little while, hasn't it?
Yeah, I don't know how long I mean, obviously, you ask them, they would know, but I think years.
Good number of years. Yes.
Sure. And you guys been involved with the Adepticon before? I know, Zach, you were there last time I was there.
Yeah, I've been. Well, I think I'm the last person still going to Horse Heresy Adepticon that was there at the first one, way back.
Was the first one? So was the first one the last year at the previous hotel?
That was. Yeah. No, there was.
it was.
What was two?
There were
Sorry, hold on.
two.
3 years at that hotel.
Right, because I think I was at that first one. No, I must have missed you. Did I go to two? Yeah, I went to two at the old hotel.
I honestly, I can't remember the previous hotel that much.
Yeah, the first one that was in Lombard. Yeah, so Weston. The first event, there were only 10 of us that were there, so that was it. And slowly but surely, everyone's just kind of fallen by the wayside. It grew really big after that first one.
Maybe I wasn't at the first one. I was playing Warhammer next door.
Okay.
I remember Heresy was to the right in a smaller room, and Warhammer Fantasy was in the next room.
That was probably 8th edition, going hard and strong at that point in time.
Oh yeah, loved it.
Heresy was
awesome.
Still all 100% Forge World, which was even more niche back then than it is today.
Indeed, and everyone at the Forge World queue assumed I was staff and kept asking me questions. I was like second or third in queue to buy book 3 because it was released whilst I was in Adepticon.
That was
time.
Book 3 came out in the 3rd year of.
That was the last one, yeah.
Adepticon, yeah. The first year we weren't in a separate room. We were in the main hall with everyone else. We had one row of tables because it was only 10 people. We only needed 5 tables.
Yeah.
So it was neat. So.
And I think I started playing either the second to last or the last year in that hotel.
Sure. Well, I mean, Adepticon's outgrown that hotel somewhat and outgrown the next hotel, so we're off to
and the hotel next door and the hotels
true
on the road.
So as Alice Cooper would say, we're off to Milwaukee, and and exciting times. How's the new venue for you guys? How much do you know about it? Or you just given space?
We have not been there in person, but from like the plans and like the sort of drafts that they have, it's a lot of space, and it should, it's a lot of space. And it's, from my understanding, it's all very newly renovated and like very new.
Yeah. So when we were in Schaumburg, Adepticon had grown so big that all of the historical games were moved down to the Hyatt Regency nearby, so a separate hotel and convention space. Still in town, but just down the road. And now it's big enough where we can bring all those back in together. And there's still going to be quite a bit of extra space left over, but it's going to fill up fast. So over the years, so this new space is where it was previously the home of Gen Con for a number of years before they moved to Indianapolis. So,
Yeah, I mean, which is monstrous.
yes.
Then that's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
My feet hurt after Gen Con, way more than they did at Adepticon. But yeah, that's a whole different beast. But I mean, it's awesome. It does, as I mentioned on the show, it's a little bit more of a pain to get to from an international point of view. But something has to give, right? But
Mhm.
on the plus side is there's a lot of hotels very close by. There's seems to be a lot of food venues and stuff that you can head out to as well. So you're maybe not stuck into.
Yeah.
The convention, or not the convention hall food, or the
Yeah,
venue
and
food.
you've got a few more options around it as well, rather than having to hike across a highway or what have you.
Yeah, because the Renaissance in Schaumburg, it's in a nice location, but it doesn't have a whole lot like immediately next to it.
No, you can't just pop
can't
out.
exactly. Yeah, you can't walk a block or two around the corner or wherever and find out
No, you have to. I
a
mean,
dozen places to eat.
yeah, no, it doesn't give you a whole lot of options. But this
Yeah,
place, there's a ton of spaces because they actually have regular sporting events down there. It's right in the center of downtown. Yeah, there's lots and lots of options. So
Awesome. So with the Grail Abyss, let's get into the Heresy a little bit again. You've previously run. Is the Grail Abyss new, or is it an extension like the Ferrix? Are we carrying on something, or is this?
So what we decided as we gather our team together now that things are strong enough after the pandemic, we wanted to get back into a formal narrative similar to what the previous runners of Heresy Adepticon, the Green Legion, did with their Gomeza campaigns. And so we talked about it, decided, kind of talked about what we wanted to do. We jumped into the old black books and we found a segment of the Heresy, the War in the Heresy, which is the Grail Abyss. So we're pulling the setting directly out of the black books themselves, specifically book 3. So
Awesome. Yeah,
for
there's
those of you
so
who want
much.
to go and find, that's where you can learn yourself a little bit about the area.
Is it book 3? I thought it was book 4.
It's in 3, but
Oh.
it stretches out after that. But the initial stuff.
That's right.
is in
Okay.
3.
Make sure we get it right. I mean, these are Heresy fans we're talking about here. They will pull you up on it. Okay, that's awesome. And what does this look like? So, obviously I've been to conventions a lot and things like that. In the UK, we don't tend to have these big conventions because we don't have the room. Space is a premium on this little island, particularly with anything around it, like these venues that you've got, the Indianapolis and Milwaukee, just they're built to do these things. We don't tend to have events with multi-track things going on or anything like that. So how does that work at Adepticon? What does the Grail Abyss look like over the course of the event?
So each day and some of the evenings, there's going to be an event. So right now it's about. So there's going to be an event during the day, and I believe on just one evening event. We did have plans for both an afternoon, like day event and evening event, but it got to be like really cumbersome, so we just cut it down to a single evening event on Thursday. But each day there's going to be an event, and the idea is that the results of each day will somehow carry forward into the next. So, we're still kind of working on the fine details of what kind of bonuses and like how the narrative will affect your games. But that's kind of the gist of it.
Sure. So it's essentially it's a multi-event kind of progression just squashed into a few days. So rather than have over the course of the year, a gaming group might have 3 or 4 events and combine them. We're looking at 3 or 4 events through period of a few days that then
Yeah.
combine.
Over the course of a whole weekend, essentially.
Sure. Awesome. And people are buying tickets for any particular part of the event, and they can jump in, and they're not missing out on anything by jumping in halfway through because they're busy on Thursday or anything like that.
No, they can absolutely mix and match how they want.
Yeah. The only thing that I would actually say that they're missing per se is each event has a completely different game type. So if you want to play escalation for as an example, you'll want.
Well, why don't you tell us what those game types are over the weekend? Let's
Sure.
start there.
Sure. So I was kind of mistaken. We do have 2 events during the day on Thursday.
It's good you know.
So for our Thursday events, we have a escalation type event, where you start at 2,000 points and you play 3 games throughout that day, and you work your way up 500 points between each round.
Cool.
There's also a sort of a general casual event, we're calling it, where some people that either want to just play one game in the day and then go explore the rest of the convention or look at other things, or they can play either the first game or only the second game, or they can play both games if they want. So we have sort of a casual narrative event going there. Thursday evening, we have the giant apocalyptic game where people can bring all the stuff that they want, all the big things.
God bless them.
You're going to see quite a few Titans there. If you wanted to see, like dozens of Titans, or I don't remember how many Titans we had last year for the huge game, but if you want to see lots of big toys, that's the evening you want to go to. So that's all on Thursday. That's a packed day.
That is a busy day, yeah.
Friday we have our first team event, which is just doubles, and we've kind of ran it more ad hoc for teams back in the day because some people didn't have a partner. But with this, you can sign up with a partner if you got a teammate in mind, or you can sign up single and find a partner that day. And we've never had an issue, and we've had plenty of people meet and make new Heresy friends for life through this event. And I'm really looking forward to that one. On Saturday, we have a brand new event that we haven't run in the past, but it's kind of a staple that Adepticon has run for some of their other major game systems, like for 40K and Age of Sigmar. So this year on Saturday, we're kind of debuting the Grand Team event, where it's in similar format as the 40K and Age of Sigmar Adepticon team events. It's you got four people per team.
Sure.
And they face off in pairs. And then
That's
on
cool.
Sunday, we have our it's 2 rounds, and this is the first time we've actually done Sunday events at Adepticon. At least with our crew for Heresy. We got 2 big 4,000 point games that day per player. So it's still standard format, but just really large points.
Bring out your super heavies. Okay, that's a really nice mix. And of course, on the other side of things, you got the Fearix guys doing their events as well.
Yeah, they have they got some. I think they have every day they got 3 round 3,000 point games going on, if I'm not mistaken. And they also got a whole bunch of Zone Mortalis games that will eventually culminate in a huge team Zone Mortalis mega battle.
Awesome. Yeah, I think something like Adepticon really allows this variety to happen because if you're running an event wherever and you need to sell tickets for it and make sure there's enough people there and everything else at your local game shop or a club or what have you, then it sometimes becomes hard to look past the norm because you don't want to risk not selling enough tickets, not having enough people to keep the events going. But at a venue like Adepticon, when everyone's there and people are there just to hang out and people are there to do whatever, you've got that space to have these different type events.
No, I said no. That's the hope. We're really looking forward to having as many people have as much fun as possible playing Heresy.
Awesome stuff. So the team event. So this is the first year there's been a team event like that with Heresy. If I'm
Yes.
correct, yeah.
We've had plenty of doubles in the past, but Heresy has grown to such a size at Adepticon. And with the new venue, I figured that this was like the year to do it, right? And like some people go to Adepticon only for the 40K team event because you see
Well,
tons of beautiful armies and like uniforms for teams, right?
sure. Yeah, it's teams is a whole different, and there's different types of teams events. You know, this is not an ETC style team event or World Championships or whatever they call it now, where you have 8 players. This is, you know, a 4-person tight knit teams. My favourite thing about Adepticon is actually the team events, and I don't play in them, but it's watching the people who come as a 4-person team, and they're not trying to win the team event. They're trying to win, or they're trying to do well at being a team with, as you say, dressing up 4 combined armies that all look brilliant. You know, you hear the stories of people leaving Adepticon in their truck and they're already planning out the next year's
next year.
board, the 4 armies they're going to take, how they're going to work. And I really hope it's popular, because I'd love to see that become a thing. For those who've never been to Adepticon before and not seen, on whichever night it is, the Saturday night,
Saturday
Friday
night, yeah.
I believe it's
Saturday night.
Saturday. It's Saturday, Sunday for the 40K. And
Sure, and they have the armies,
Armies on parade.
the armies on
Yeah.
parade, the big display boards out, and people go. I mean, again, you know, people are hiring vans to drive displays up to, you know, driving 3 days to drive a display up to the thing, and that's what they're there for. That's their focus. And already I'm thinking, imagine like an Isfan, a traitor Isfan team, you know, with the Isfan 3 with the four legions there, it would look amazing.
That was the very first thing that came to my head too. Is looking forward to seeing like some Istvan 3 teams showing up.
Yeah. There's so much scope with Heresy that we don't see, and wouldn't it be awesome if in a few years' time we have a Heresy section of that armies on display? Because there's no reason why not. People in all 3 hobbies, all 3 aspects, those big games can all produce some amazing stuff.
Well, we talk a lot of the community wise. We talk a big game about how hobby centric we are. Well, this is kind of the opportunity to put our money where our mouth is.
Flex those hobby muscles, if you will.
Yeah, because I do think it's funny sometimes that we do talk how hobby centric we are, particularly when people look at other tournament gaming, and it's like, well, you are looking at the tournament gaming, and Adepticon highlights the hobby is there everywhere. So it's time to, you know, put your money out where your mouth is, and let's see what you got, as they say.
Yeah, we'd like to have Heresy be that, you know, have their piece of the pie in the spotlight.
Too right. Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's really awesome.
And that's this whole year, being in a new venue, trying to see what the interest is, how everything's going to shake out, being in a new place and getting everyone in their spots. It's going to be interesting. So
a massive opportunity, right? Because the last hotel, first year I went, we were in the main hall, tagged on to the end of 40K, and it was horrible. Like, don't like the hall, don't like the hard floor.
I remember that concrete floor just kills.
Yeah, absolutely.
Some people bought those like pads that, you know, they were the like, you know, the 4D chess thinkers that brought those little pads, you know, to go to each table they were playing at.
Absolutely, you just got to remind yourself to sit down like whenever you can. Eventually, well, you know, got shifted up into the Heresy room, as it was called, which was great because it was all there in one place.
Yeah.
But also it was sort of out the way. So unless you went to find the Heresy room, you didn't necessarily happen across it.
No.
Helped. Sorry, I did go a couple of years ago because I went when Neil won the Golden Demon. Helped when Golden Demon was outside because people were looking at Golden Demon going, what's going on in there? Wow, you know, why has that bloke got a Titan on the table? And all that kind of thing. But moving to this new venue, but obviously having a set room like that restricts numbers, and that
Yes.
was you were butting up against that a little bit.
And yeah, we were almost pretty much at capacity in the Nirvana, which was the Heresy room
Sure.
last
Yep.
year. We actually
Other
found
things-
out after we set up that we had a whole new row of tables at the venue set up that we could have worked with, and didn't know we would.
Typical.
Yeah, it was like, wait, here's a surprise row.
Yeah, they found some way to weasel those in, so that was helpful because it gave us a little more extra space. And all of our events, we always have people that kind of show up day of, just want to say, well, hey,
Yeah.
I couldn't get tickets, or it didn't seem like there was going to be enough, and we ended up having the space. So like, yeah, come on, come have a game, and we add them in and take care of them from there.
Awesome.
This next year, upcoming year, though, we're going to be back onto a main floor, pairing it with other game systems. So, but again, this is year one, so we have to see what the
How the space works out in terms of how many people sign up, people show up, and
Sure.
same thing and that it goes for the other events that we'll be sharing a room with, how their space shapes up and how their attendance is, and
Yeah.
it's
And there's
year
a-
one in a new venue that there will be a lot of things that will be figured out.
Yes, and things will, even though we have kind of a general plan of how the table spacings are going to go, where everyone's going to be, depending on how many people actually buy tickets to the different events, that could all get thrown out the window whenever it gets shifted around again as well. So
For sure.
you got to
And
wait and see.
Yeah, there's an opportunity here for Heresy to stake its claim and
Yes,
say,
exactly.
we're here, we're big, you can't ignore us, give us the room we deserve. And the other games that go with it, it's harder. Titanicus has had a small following at Adepticon. Hopefully that'll be growing. Legions is coming in. Who knows how that's going to do? But there are other
Legions
games coming in. Yeah.
No, yes, Legions has a lot more time to sort of like gather up speed, because last year
Yeah.
I think Legion released like a month or two before Adepticon
Sure.
even
Yeah.
happened.
So it's cool to see. Make sure I might get a new pair of trainers a couple of weeks beforehand and really wear them in. Make sure I've got some nice thick soles to be standing on. But if you're
Nice.
prepared, you can do it. That's
Yeah,
cool.
you'll be
So
fine.
sure.
Well, I was just to say, I used to work at a factory, and I was in steel-toed boots on concrete
Yeah.
floors for 12 hours a day. So
So you're hardened to.
a little bit. Not anymore. Now I have a cushy office job. So
Oh, you got soft.
yes,
Shocking.
yes, I did.
Yeah. So cool. So getting back a little bit to the events. So you've got a narrative that runs through them all. Is that right? Or they tie into the narrative.
Yes.
As you're doing the events, does that impact the next event, or is it more of a story structure that goes through to the whole?
The goal is both.
At the moment, as we were discussing with our crew, it's been a story structure
Sure.
that carries on through, based off of the information that we have or that we're working on from the old black books. So
That's cool. I mean, at the end of the day, there's positives and negatives to each of these.
Yeah.
If you have it influencing other games, then people can feel lost if they haven't played in that, and people can feel like they're not getting the story. Whereas if you do it this way, then everyone feels part of it without feeling like they're missing out too much on things like that as well, which is really cool. And it's always a tricky one when people can dip in and out how to do that kind of stuff. And at the end of the day, you guys can decide to throw whatever you need to in there. Like game, the players don't need to know what happens behind that, the other side of that laptop screen, right?
And it gives us a little bit of flexibility for based off of what we see showing up as far as the player base and what they're bringing. So yeah, we can do different things with it in that capacity.
So you talk about a team. What kind of what kind of team do you have to run an event like this? On just for your side of things.
So we kind of threw together everyone that is involved in the team have been helping me in some capacity or another run the Heresy events for the last couple of years. Right now, based off of like our chats, we ended up starting the Heresy Accountability Buddies podcast. I got stuck with work and school, so I dropped out of the podcast again. But they're going strong. But it's the same people. So you have Duncan and Jack, Derek and myself, or the main Jason Tick, who ran
The Big Titan games.
The Big Titan games for the last couple of years since Nate's passing. So it's the same crew. We're just kind of becoming a little more organized, taking a little more ownership over individual sections. I guess is what best way to categorize it.
Cool. So that's half dozen people, 7 or 8 people.
Probably
overall.
half dozen. And we got a couple
yeah,
more
but-
that are like kind of like, I guess you could say admin staff. Like I have a buddy. His name's also Derek. He does a lot of the he makes the score sheets and does the team matchups for the day of.
Yeah.
He's an Excel and spreadsheet whiz. And I got another buddy whose name is also Derek. The three of us are the Dereks. Who does a lot of like table setup and
Awesome.
stuff
Yeah,
like that.
I just think it's good
And then
to
we
show.
have- And then we have Nick Meyer out of Indiana, who's going to help us with a lot of the rules questions because that's his bag.
Oh man,
So-
he's good at that.
Is
You
it?
got a question, he's got an answer. Sorry,
Yeah,
what
is
were
it-
you saying?
My answer is usually, what do the rules say? That's 90% of your rules questions answered.
Yeah.
I can't remember what I was going to say, to be honest. Your answers were good enough, absolutely good enough. But I think it's important just to highlight sometimes, particularly spreadsheet person, like when you're not running a tournament, this is where 40k and Age of Sigmar have it so easy in that you can use one of many tournament apps when you're doing Heresy and it's not tournament, but you still want to keep things logged and what have you. It's a lot more work, and if you can have spreadsheet person on your side, it makes things go a lot smoother.
Yeah, he's very good at what he does. Because like you're 100% like hit the head on the nail with all these other highly competitive events have, like you said, tons of apps out there that just they do the math for you and you got results in seconds. But when we're doing narrative stuff, so some people don't sometimes we get people that forget their score. They just remember they had a fun game and they don't record things 100%. Or we have some people that, hey, I haven't seen you since last Adepticon, I'd love to play him in the final round or the first round or whatever.
Yeah.
We're all for that, meeting people or making new friends and playing old friends.
That's it. Well, even every year in the past, we've had a thing where we've asked people to show of hands, when if that's their first Adepticon or their first time playing Heresy. And it seems like every year, half of the people there, that is their first time at Adepticon or at Heresy or whatever. And half of those will come back the next year or 2 years later. It's
and bring some friends.
The nature of the beast where we're at. It's a destination point or a bucket list item that people want to do. So works out.
Are new players attending? This is not a negative about new players attending, but are they then one of your kind of more time-intensive kind of things you have to deal with, or do you find that actually it works out okay?
It works out perfectly fine.
Times.
I mean, on occasion you'll have a table or two where you got two newer players that maybe they run out of time in the round, and they get through turn maybe 2. But that's going to happen at any event,
in years past, where if we've had someone say that, hey, they're brand new to it or they're very inexperienced, then typically we'll try to through our manipulations of the pairings, move them off to work with someone that first game that's more of a veteran player that we're familiar with from other Adepticons, and they usually get them kind of once the ball is rolling. The very next game, they have enough bind themselves that they're pretty good at that point. So
Knowing,
please
having
say
the odd
they're
player that you know can help a newbie
Yeah.
out is invaluable, right?
and Adepticon very much is more of a extended family reunion than a competitive mindset
Yeah.
kind of thing. So everyone talks about the beer and pretzels thing, but that's very much how this is. Everyone's there to get along and have friends, and it's we don't see each other for a year, and everyone's checking in on each other, and then off we go. So, and just new players are just new members of the family. All it is.
It's not uncommon to have people in the Heresy Hall well past like 2-3 in the morning, just and not even playing, just talking, hanging.
I was about to say it's definitely a beer and pretzels game when the Swedes are there, right? And
Definitely.
Scandinavians in general.
The
Very much
Swedes.
so.
I miss the Swedes.
Yeah. Yes, I saw some messy sights for sure, and some late mornings the following morning. That's always a trick for people. There are some people who are very late in the morning or don't turn up because of the festivities of the previous
Hey,
evening.
how you gonna
It
how you
happens.
gonna throw JP under the bus like that?
I had no names listed, but hey, if the Canadian truck driving cap fits, then he could certainly wear it.
JP's a good friend, so that he knows I mess with him all the time on his podcast and elsewhere.
It's so easy, that's why. But
Yeah, he's so amenable because it's. I think that's that Canadian mindset of like, yeah, I'm sorry.
I suppose he just sets himself up for it. But bless him. Maybe I'll see him next year and can give him some grief face to face. That's cool. Yeah, awesome. So, you guys are going to be nice and busy the whole weekend. I do
Well,
remember.
yes and no. Part of having this crew, which everyone is taking ownership of a different gaming event, allows the other people that aren't running anything that time to actually go and play in games or go shopping or see the rest of the convention. So this is kind of part of the mindset of how we organize
Expanding the team.
our organizers. Yeah.
That's cool. That's good. I do remember one of the last times I was there, thinking I will go to bed not too late tonight. And then as I'm walking just past the bar, Zach's message going, "Hey, you around for a chat?" It's like, okay, I won't go to bed quite that. And it's going to be interesting to see how that dynamic works with this new hotel as well. It could be a really interesting year to see what's happening.
Well, it's everything about this year is going to be kind of a learning experience. So.
Yeah. Hopefully there's enough lift for everyone, which is always a bit of an issue in the hotels. But as you see, all these carts come by with all the models on. Is there anything specific you want to get out there? I mean, when do we know when the tickets are going up? Have we had a date yet? We haven't.
So there's nothing official from Adepticon yet.
Sure.
But the timing should probably be similar as to previous years, where I think tickets go on sale very soon in the beginning of the year.
Yeah, they've moved it back now, haven't they? To
early January, yeah, because they have to move it back because there's so many new events that it just takes longer to get everything compiled. But the sample cart that should go live mid-December, third week of December, I think.
Right.
Sometime around the 16th.
Yeah, that's how they've done it in previous years. So I would wager it'd be similar timing.
Awesome. Yeah, and that's good. That's where you can go in, have a little look at what's going on,
and sort of plan your weekend ahead of time.
Yeah. And those people can be desperately trying to work out which of the 14 paint seminars they want to go to that they're going to miss out on that they can try and get.
I think they got even more seminars this year than last year. So
I'm sure they have. And those, I feel sorry for those guys because there's only so many people you can have in a room to do a
Mhm.
painting seminar with.
You know what? I've noticed that even some seminars, if they sell it immediately, I would still like try to show up at those seminars because
Oh, yeah.
sometimes you got people drop out.
It's the same as any other gaming event. There will be people that
Don't show up.
forget or like they have to go grab something to eat or something else. They get waylaid
Yep.
for one reason or another.
And
Yeah.
they never make it to the event.
Mhm.
Flights and family issues, and who knows? It's no, definitely worth trying. But the Scrabble, the panic Scrabble, to get the tickets initially is always. I feel sorry for the people who can paint
Yeah,
sometimes.
hitting
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
The best thing is, and we say this every year, if you don't get in, get on the wait list always,
Sure.
because people will cancel days later. Honestly, after the cart goes open,
And
so
it's the nature of those things, isn't it? It's like when the big stores have their big sales on, people just grab stuff and then decide what they're going to do. Because if you don't grab it then and there, then you don't have a choice. So people do, grab
and we've
first, think
always,
later.
and the Heresy Hall has always been really good at getting people in. Even so, I think we should be okay. But yeah, definitely. The best way I've had it for playing a cart when I was trying to get in on something, have a narrow focus of what it is you want, and
Yes.
make sure you're ready to go for that thing. Don't
Yep. Last
dilly
time I
dally
went,
with all this other stuff. You want to get a shirt, go back after you get your
Yes.
get your sign out with your events, then get
big
your shirt,
time.
get your dice, all that other stuff. Yeah.
Prioritize. Last year for me, it was Space Hulk. I
Mm-hmm.
went in, I got my ticket, I got Space Hulk, I got out, I went back in to then see what my next item or two. Definitely is the way to do it, because I mean, do we have any idea on how big it's going to be? Is it going to be much bigger this year, or
So we wanted to be much bigger, but so did every other event at Adepticon.
Yes.
that's what I meant, the whole event? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think last year, hold on, I got notes for this.
Oh, wow.
Last year we had enough we had 70 possible tables, or sorry, 64 possible tables last year, and we had about 114 Heresy players on one day, I think. Yeah. This year we're looking at. Let me take a look at our sheet again.
Yeah, I was gonna say 100 of those were during the team event at that point.
Or sorry, we had 50 tables last year.
Right.
This year we're aiming for 60 tables. It looks like, or 60 plus. That's the goal. I think that's what we're probably going to get between our events and the Felix events. Just with the way space was worked out.
Sure.
But it's always
Uh,
subject to change, barring ticket sales of different events.
Yeah, but we're still for like the team event. We're still looking at 120 players. The grand team event, we're still looking at 120 players.
20.
That's
Yeah.
base tickets. That doesn't count waitlist, because if the waitlist is there, then we can take that forward and say, okay, we have all these extra people. Let's work out our extra or more spacing for tables, which we have options for. But we have
let's
to
force
kind of
some of those historicals out of here. We'll have those tables. Yeah, I mean, it must be a nightmare. I dread to think organising an event like this, particularly around a change like this, as in at the top level. That's a headache for someone.
The guy that does I think there's like one guy that does all the table allocation and spacing and mapping
Kind
for
of has to
all,
be, right?
yeah.
and the man's a wizard. He's like, well, I can, and like every option he has figured out for a gaming space for an event, he's got like 3 backups, and
Wow.
for like
Yeah.
where else he's like, I could put you here or here or here, move them over here, move them over here, and the man's a wizard.
And then
It's
he has his in case of emergency break glass plan as well, which
sure.
he doesn't want to touch.
Fair enough. Because I mean, the infamous London Grand Tournament. I was I hadn't ever been to the venue, and I was told, oh, by the way, I can sell more tickets if you can sell them. And it's like, cool, okay. But those tickets were space from another event that technically weren't in my area. So it's like you can't, and that's someone thinking we got space, let's use it. It's like I was only when I got to the venue, I was like, luckily we had dropouts and things like that because that
Wow.
space was not a million miles away, but it wasn't part of my event.
Mhm.
So these little things are, again, the right people in the right roles is massive for an event of this scale. Even your events, but going up. Is there anything else really important about Adepticon, about the Heresy Adepticon that we should be aware of?
If you want to get into the grand narrative event for the 4-person team event, I'd say start looking now if you don't have friends or buddies to
Sure.
play with.
Get a plan.
Is there a place to go and look and be part of a community on that? Is it just Facebook?
It's just Facebook right now.
Sure.
I do have there's a couple Discords I want to reach out to for people to, because that's the thing with Discord. There's dozens, or I think dozens is a low ball, just tons of different communities out there in Discord. And man, I wish there was a single heresy one that we could like, yep, this is the place. There's
Yeah.
one in mind I'm thinking of. I
I
haven't
wouldn't be on it.
reached out.
As soon as Discord has X amount of people on it, I'm like, no, I can't keep up.
Right, and
I get
that's the
alert
other challenge of it.
anxiety. It's really hard to have, and this is a good problem to have for Heresy right now. We're at that point where it's too big to manage in one
A single
place.
spot, yeah.
Yeah. But that, as you say, operates other challenges going forwards. But
I was going to say, the Heresy Accountability Buddies Discord, they did set up an Adepticon 2025 channel
Yep.
for
Right.
the team. So if you want to look for teams or people to play with, there was that option. Otherwise, it's I think primarily probably Facebook. But
Sure.
I feel like once the sample cart goes live, that's when we're going to start seeing people start scrambling.
Yeah. Accountability buddies, good people doing good stuff. If you are, if you've never heard of them or what have you, and you think, do I want to go and join their Discord? I know John Christensen is involved with it, isn't he? He's very good people. Lent me an army 1 year
What a guy.
Adepticon. Yeah, brilliant. So, I don't know how many of the guys with that I know because it's amazing how many people I know without knowing their name at these things, because names slide through your head, but you see a face and you're like, oh yeah, all right, mate, how you doing? So, but they're good people. So that's cool. But yeah, we'll see some more excitement, I'm sure. I almost wonder why some people don't have, even if it's a fake Facebook account, just because it's such a useful place for events.
Mhm.
Keep an eye on that Facebook, or have your mate do it, or what have you.
Yep.
That's my usual place I pick up info
And
anyway.
I don't know if we mentioned it, but it's the team events for both the doubles and the grand team event are 1,500 apiece. So
Oh,
it's
cool.
really, even if you got something like a team together, like say the beginning of January, if you put your mind to it, most people I think can get a 1,500 point army done in a decent amount of time.
Yeah.
Even especially if you work as a team or have just paint jams, you get
Sure.
all together one night, have a couple drinks, and put on some movies and get hobbying.
And it's amazing sometimes, particularly I love the idea of the teams events. We don't really have many over here, all round, because of again the nature of the beast. But I've seen people join teams and then have eternal friendships develop from them that grow and grow and grow. And I would love to see couple of years time, people turning up with dedicated these 4 1,500 point armies were built for this event to look, on the basing all done the same with the display board, all that stuff is just going to be phenomenal. And those 40k and Age of Sigmar ones, some of them are so brilliantly designed, unique in how they're displayed as much as anything else.
Yep.
That there's stuff you can do with Heresy that will fit right into that and will blow people's socks off as well. And awesome.
I'm very, very excited and very nervous about it at the same time.
Well, not long now. The months are ticking down. What, 4 months away?
I know, it's so fast.
2025 is almost here. And then it will really be the real tick down for that. That'll be cool. Awesome. How is it for the terrain? Because I know a lot of Adepticon terrain is stored in various places. Is it much more of a pain to get that out to Milwaukee, or is it?
No, they
similar?
So because of the new terrain rules for 40k, any previous years has gone to the Heresy.
Okay, cool.
So they're transporting. I don't know specifically how they transport it all. I think they drive it up and
they have a semi-trailer that they drive up to the warehouse that they keep everything in, and then they load it up. And then
we'll have our wide selection of terrain to choose from.
Awesome, that's really cool.
And it's made by the Adepticon spray team, and they don't mess around when it comes to efficiency and getting good terrain done quick.
Man, and talk about people who need a thank you. Andrew lives out in California somewhere, uses his own time to fly in to help paint stuff and then fly back home.
Oh, no kidding.
Because he's part of that crew, and I'm sure other people do crazy things as well. And you're hanging out with your mates, but it's still giving, these people are giving up a lot of time and effort and money to help out other people have fun, which is
they're
awesome.
The true superheroes of Adepticon.
Just remember, if you go to any of these events, always, I do say everything, you just thank the people that run the events for you. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure you two guys are going to have loads of fun running the event, but without people to run events, you don't get to play in them. So and there are, as you say, for something like Adepticon, there's how many people that are involved in running it that you will never see or never know who have a major part to play. So,
and
awesome.
You don't have to meet me or any of the crew as long as you show up, play, and have fun. That's good enough for us.
Yeah, and that's really cool, you guys. But I was, as a player, I think we should be remembering just to say thank you sometimes, because sometimes and people don't. It's not that people are mean or anything like that. You just get wrapped up in what's going on.
Yeah, it's like there's a lot going on,
Yeah,
and we get it.
And this is why Adepticon's so good. And it'll be interesting to see if they maintain this in the new venue, which I'm sure they will. But at Schaumburg, you didn't leave the hotel generally. So you were on camp, effectively, for those few days. And reality bends, doesn't it? Like, all of a sudden, the person you meet on the Thursday is your best mate by Saturday. And you're talking to them about stuff you wouldn't talk to anyone else that you haven't talked to, if you like, unless you've known them for 6 months.
Exactly.
But that's, to me, why I've been to LVO. It was great. You're in Vegas. That's cool. But in the evening, everyone went out into town. And I'm like, I know. I want to be sat in the bar talking rubbish about toy soldiers till 3 a.m, ruining my voice on the first night. All that kind of stuff.
And then it's gone for the rest of the weekend.
Oh, well, yeah. American air conditioning will do that to me. So it always dies when I'm visiting. Brilliant. I'm looking forward to it. I don't know how much I'm going to play because I might be across different venues and stuff. I might even come and offer my services to help out if needed at some point.
You'll be more than
welcome to come down.
Yeah, Zac knows how to hit me up for sure.
Yes.
Anything else before we go? Doesn't have to be.
No,
I don't know. Get painting.
I think that's it. Yes.
You're running out of time.
Will Captain America Praetor be there for a Praetor battle,
Always.
do we think?
Always. I always have him with me. Anytime I go.
Awesome. Excellent. Well, thank you very much, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Well, thank you for listening to another episode of the Imperial Truth Podcast. If you've got any feedback, if you've got any questions, you want me to forward any questions to the Adepticon guys, anything like that, then please feel free to contact us. Greg at theimperialtruth.com, Imperial_Truth on Twitter, and at Child of Fang on Twitter and on Blue Sky. Don't know how long I'm going to be on Twitter for, but the Blue Sky account is up and more people are joining that. On Instagram as well, at Child of Fang. So you can get hold of us there as well. The photos are up of the models that Howard painted and looking good. Did a cracking job on them, I feel. And yeah, it's a fun episode. So yeah, if you've got any questions about the show, any feedback, any questions about anything related to the show, anything you want us to pass on, then please use those methods of communication. Obviously, we're coming up to a new year. We'll be looking back over 2024 with our first episode of 2025. And I think we'll do, I think we'll open up to listener questions as well. So if you have a question for the show, like specifically for a question and answer kind of thing, then please fire them over. I'll try and get, put it out on the socials as well, but I'll leave it a little bit. So if anyone is listening to this and wants to send a question in, then you'll probably be top of the list because I will leave it, as I say, just a little while. Once again, we have the wonderful Element Games. I contacted them only the other day, actually, about our ongoing partnership, and the guy there in charge of dealing with that is just exemplifies the nature of the company and was delivered more than they had to on that, which I really do. I know they sponsor the show, and I know we get a little bit back from people utilising using their services, but it's not just that. They've been with it so long. I could have gone somewhere else. Not everything goes perfect for every company, but I found that Element have stepped up when things have not gone quite the way you want them to. And that is the nature of good service, in my opinion. We have the Patreon. If you do feel like you've enjoyed this show, then please, don't feel you have to do anything. The show will always be free, and you can, if you feel like you want to help out, you can tell a friend about the show, or multiple friends. Tell them to listen if you enjoyed it. You can use the links for Element Games, for Battle Bling, for various other things we've got going on. Excuse me. And if you really, really like the show, you can support us on Patreon from as little as $1 a month. Basically, it's just little tip jar, helps pay for hosting and the little things that go on around that. We're not making millions off this. We're podcasting about the wrong stuff to be doing that for sure. So, a massive thank you again to any people who have been patrons or are patrons or have even considered being patrons, because, as I say, you don't have to do anything. There's no rewards for it. We're not locking any content behind a paywall there or anything like that. So, brilliant stuff. I'm not sure what else. I'm sure there's something else I'm missing at the moment. Who knows what it is, but we'll be back in 2025 with all the usual stuff, I'm sure. At least 12 fully packed episodes of fun and entertainment. Fingers crossed for a really cool campaign book or something equivalent, and a Primarch. It's been a while since we've had a Primarch, so it'd be really good to see who's coming out next. And maybe actually, maybe that can be part of people sending in stuff. We'll do questions. Maybe we'll do some hopes for 2025 in the Heresy community as well, because I think that would be really good to do. Anyway, I'm waffling and warbling and it's very tired. I've still got a lot of editing to do. So, until next time, you have been listening to the Imperial Truth.